What's up, laughing man? What's up, my brother? What's up? You're always the first one to come. I love it. And you always show some support. You always come by. All right. Let's get started. So, uh, Justin, what is up, my brother? What is up? Thank you for just stopping by. Guys. Thank you for just stopping by. All right, I love it. Okay, your support is meaningful to me, even if you just stop by to say hi. So, tonight I'll be watching a debate. I'll be watching a debate between Destiny and Konstantin KISIN. All right. I don't really care for Destiny, so I'm maybe a bit biased with that. I do like Konstantin KISIN. Okay, now we'll see how it goes, because reading the comments, there's a lot of people who honestly aren't a fan of this debate because they say it's crazy or whatever, and it grinds your gears, huh? By the way, congrats on not falling in the modern women trap, and I heard it better to find one in the countryside. It doesn't grind my gears, my brother. I love it that you are I love it that you're always here, right? You don't have to stay the whole time, but I know that you'll come by. I know that you'll come by to say hi. So I love it. So no, doesn't grind my gears. And yes, I don't necessarily say she was from the countryside. She's from where my mom is born. But yes, I've said this countless times before. I believe my brothers get a passport. Get a passport, because here's the thing: where she's submissive, she's obedient, she's not she's a lot of things I wanted. Okay, not perfect, but like it's delusional to want perfection, right? It's delusional to want perfection. So I always said this: get a passport. Get a passport and get a woman outside of the Western influences. Now, how you go about it, right? If you want to marry her, if you want to live here, bring her here. If you want to live over there, go over there yourself. However you want to, that's up to you, right? We're all adults. I'm just saying, get a passport. Stop dealing with these feminist women. I swear, every man, right, in the U.S. can literally find a woman outside of the U.S. I believe almost every man. You can find a woman outside of the U.S. You do not need to procreate with these 304s, with these feminists, with these honestly unbearable, annoying ass women. You don't. I said it before and I'll continue to say it. Get a passport, travel the world. You don't have to just you don't have to, be a passport bro, but I mean like it's the opportunity. It's the ability, right? It's the ability to just travel the world. See what else is out there. Okay? I didn't necessarily 100% went to Vietnam because I wanted to find a girl. I wanted to, I wanted to some vacation. I want to do some charity work, and it just so happens that I found a woman that would be what I wanted. Right, liberal women, exactly. Get away from these women. Right, do not deal with these women. Just let them, deal with the Chads, the Tyrones, and the Pookies. Right, let the liberal women get used by the top tier men, the top tier men that they want. Let those women get used by those types of men. Right, let them. Oh, super cuck here, and the 304 ex-wife, that left hand from an extra. But I think broken him. Yeah, I'm saying, just don't deal with it. Right? I mean, I'm sorry. Dealing with Western women, you will be a cuck. You will be a cuck. You will be used. You will be abused. I'm sorry. So these women don't deserve good men. These women don't deserve your time. They don't deserve your time. They don't deserve your effort. Leave them alone. Leave these women alone. Don't approach them. Don't deal with them. Don't even have sex with them. Right? Don't lower yourself to their insanities. Find a woman outside of the West. Right? Outside of the U.S. So that's my thing. I'm 100% a big supporter of don't deal with these crazy ass women. Just stop. Stop dealing with them. All right. So, like I'm saying, I'm going to be checking out this debate. Might not be up your alley. And just to point this out, this passport sis thing is actually sex tourism common. This is the thing, the stupid thing, right? The passport bro says, I'm sorry. Okay. You think men outside of the West wants to marry you? Why? Why would they want to marry you? The boss bitch, right? The big, like seriously, the same problems that men in America faces with these women, men of other countries, other nations will face the same problems, right? It's like men are not choosing American women or Western women or feminist women because they make money, because they have a college degree. No, men all over the world don't give a shit about that. Men all over the world don't care about your college degree, about your about your accomplishments, about your money. That's great. Men don't say that. Oh, don't have it. Men don't care about it. It doesn't make you more attractive to men. The best it would do is just don't make you less attractive. Okay. But it doesn't make you more attractive. It is personality. And guess what? Your personality will be hated universally. Okay. Feminist personalities will be hated universally. So you think that you get a passport, bro? You get a passport and travel and you'll find a man? No. You will find a man to have sex with you, just like you could in America, in the West. Right? Women can find a man anywhere to have sex with them. The problem isn't, do you have a problem finding a man, right? The problem isn't that, you can't, find a man to have sex with you. That's not the problem. The problem is, can you find a man that wants to commit to you? That is the problem. And I'm sorry, you can't find a man in America to commit with you. You think you'll find a man that would commit to you in other nations? Why? It's like ridiculous. So do what I would say. You know what? Even if the women, they want to get a passport, go for it. Right? Travel the world. See how great your luck is. So I'm all for it. All right. So like I was saying, we'll be checking out this debate. A lot of the commenters say that it's not a good debate, so we'll see. I'm speeding up, and I'll probably skip certain points to see, speed it up, whatnot. So we'll see how good or not good it is. Well, let's check it out. Now, if you like to watch debates or not, that's up to you. I kind of wanted to watch this debate, because I like debates like that sometimes. But all right, let's check it out.
Yeah, I'll kind of take the reins on this. I feel like when I hear people talk about things related to open borders, mass migration, or national identity, there's kind of two questions that always pop up in my mind, and I never hear people actually kind of tack down what they mean when they say these things. So the first thing is, for national identity, I don't know as much about the various identities that exist in the UK, but I know for the United States.
Yes, like, you wonder why STD rates are high. Because this is the thing. Women have no problem finding sex. Women have no problem finding sex. That's not a problem. That's not an issue that women are facing. The problem is, can you get a man to commit to you?
To try to find an overlap between identity from a gay guy in San Francisco versus like a farmer in Iowa or something. There's not many commonalities there to speak of when you talk about national identity, especially when I'm thinking of it in
the national identities. We're all American. We are Americans. The national identity is that we are, you know, we're able to, you know, live the ideals of the Constitution, live as an American. That is it, right? That is the national, you know, identity. You are an American, right? You are an American through marriage, through birth, you know, through the, you know, legal process. You are an American. That's the national identity. You're an American, that now you follow the laws of the land, that you now follow the Constitution of the land. That makes you an American. Master debater. Yes.
Context of what type of immigrant would threaten that whatever unified identity, whatever those two things are. So I'm kind of curious.
The kind of immigrants that, you know what, does it illegally. They didn't go through the process. The kind of immigrants that refuse to assimilate. The one thing you could do as an immigrant is learn the language. Learn the language of the land. The language of the land, where, although it's only, I mean, we don't talk about it, but it's English, right? It's English. That's the language of the land. Learn it. You don't have to be like 100%, you know, natural, but if you barely understand English, you can barely read English, you can barely say anything in English, then obviously you're far from American.
I guess when I think about national identity, when I think about being threatened by people, my first question is, what is the national identity that we're trying to protect for the United States or for the United Kingdom? And then when we talk about like migration or mass migration, what do we mean exactly when we say that?
What do you mean mass migration? It's not that. This is the thing where, this is why I dislike Destiny. He's a man that's smart, but yet extremely stupid. What do you mean by mass migration? It means that it's a abnormal amount, right, of people entering a country, whether legally or illegally. It's an abnormal amount of people entering a country. So I think I saw a little bit of this. Konstantin will say that for every year, because we do stats. There's stats, right? There are studies on this, right? So you can do studies of seeing consistency, right? Every year, maybe a couple 100,000, right? Every year, a couple 100,000. So, and when you see 1 year, 2 years, right? It's a couple million. That's mass migration, right? That's a abnormal amount of mass migration. People entering a country, a huge amount of people entering a country. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was Sweden or Norway, whatever, one of those Nordic countries. They had to stop. They had to completely stop their immigration policy because they had such a huge influx of immigrants. Okay, it was burdening their system. This is why it's okay that we, you know, as a country, as any nation, we allow a trickle, right? We allow maybe a couple hundred, maybe 100,000, couple 100,000 people in every year, right? It's a trickle. Okay, it's kind of a trickle, right? So our system can easily assimilate the amount of people that are coming in. But when you have millions of people coming in every year, it's hard for us to, you know, assimilate that amount of people, right? Very quickly. And because we can't do it, and each year it gets more and more, right? Because the 1 million comes in, we didn't fully assimilate them. The next year, another million, another 2 million. So it bogs the system, right? It bogs the system. It stretches the system. So that is what people mean by an abnormal amount of mass migration, and that is a problem. Okay, I can be sympathetic, I can be understanding that a country would say, yeah, we need to stop it, we need to make it a focus because it is too much, okay? It is too much for us to handle.
Well, okay. So there's two questions there. What is national identity and what is immigration? Why don't we start in reverse and talk about immigration? Take Britain as an example, right? So I've lived in this country. I came to Britain it was just about Russia. Prior to that, it was the Soviet Union in 1996. So let's go back to 1991 because that's the data when we have the census. 1991. What has happened in the last 35 years?
Super cuck like a smart dumb guy like Will Smith. Yes, I agree. Said in I'm Legend. Remember that movie before he has become one to. Will Smith is an amazing actor, but I've grown to hate the man because he has become definitely a super cuck. I agree. He's become a weak ass man. Right? I honestly despise weak ass men. I really do. Okay. Now, if you're weak and you want to get better, okay. Now I respect that more. Okay. But if you're a weak man and you stay a weak man, I don't respect you at all. So Will Smith is definitely one I don't respect. What's up, Big Bars, my brother? What is up? Thank you for being here.
In the last 35 years ago, this country had a population of 58 million people. Today, the population is 70 million. Almost all of that is due to mass immigration. So the population of Britain, the immigrant population of Britain, that's first generation, people who've arrived, went from 4 million to 12 million in the space of 35 years, right? It trebled in 35 years. Now, you might say, well, is that a lot? Is that a little? Who knows? That is more people, in the last 35 years, more people came to Britain than came to Britain in the previous 2 millennia. So more people in 35 years than had come in 2,000 years. Now, that seems like quite a lot, right? Now, we'll talk about some more facts about this and then we can talk about national identity. I'm going to take a little time, if you don't mind, just to lay this out.
Yeah, I guess just kind of poke around as you answer.
Yeah, but hold on. Let me just let's talk about what we mean by immigration, right?
Okay. Well, then also the mass, because I hear a lot of these words will be like, it was a lot of people.
Well, hold on.
Like, what does that mean? Yeah.
I'm explaining it. So more people in 35 years than 2,000 years, that sounds like quite a lot of people. Is
not
that fair?
Necessarily, no.
Is that fair?
No, not really, right? In the context,
really.
like if I were to ask for like the total growth of wealth compared to like the last like 50 years, might also dwarf the last 2,000 years, or the total amount of carbon pollution, or the total amount of TV episodes. Or
yeah, but you're right. It might dwarf it. So you understand what that means, right? You understand? Literally, that's the concept, right? It's a lot. That's all he's trying to do, right? That's all he's trying to convey. It's a lot. And you brought up an example, right? You compared the GDP of the last 2 decades to the last couple centuries. Okay, yeah, it's a lot. So comparatively, this is why I find super cuck indeed. This is why I find people like Destiny. Sometimes if you see my debates with Alan, right? Disingenuous, right? Disingenuous people, because you understand what he's doing. He's showing you that it's a lot. Okay, he's using a comparison thing, right? And you use the exact same comparison to exactly point out, yeah, it's a lot. So when you use like, in just hypothetically, right, in a span of 1 year, right, we get 10 people, right, and 10 people in 1 year. While let's say in 5 years we had 10 people. So you use comparatively, it seems like a lot. Okay, that's what he's trying to mean. The numbers doesn't necessarily convey it, but the idea is, okay, in such a small span of time, you get this much. In a large amount of time, you get this much. Compare the two. They'd be playing games.
Songs written. Like, I don't know if I would just arbitrarily say, I'm going to look at immigration, I'm going to measure it past some 1,000-year thing or whatever.
You don't think that more people coming into a country in 35 years than had come in the previous 2,000 years is quite a lot?
I just think that statement is like vacuous and meaningless. When we say quite a lot, should it have been less? Like, what kind of immigrants shouldn't have come? No. What does that mean?
Maybe it should have been less. Maybe, listen to the thing where, why isn't it consistent? Right? Why isn't it consistent? Why isn't it less? Why is it more? Literally, that's what it is. It's not meaningless. It's not vacuous, right? There's meaning to it. Why is it more, right, in the last handful of years compared to the last 1,000 years, right? Last couple hundred years, right? That's the thing where I find this. Your best friend.
Making it into a moral conversation. I'm talking about purely numbers. You might think it's a great thing, right? Like,
well, to be clear, I'm not talking. Just to be clear, I'm not talking moral.
That's why he's not saying like good or bad or whatever. he's using a comparison, right? It's a comparison. So is it not a lot or is it a lot? Plain and simple. It is a lot, and he gave the context of why he deemed it's a lot. Konstantin gave his argument, right? Konstantin gave his argument. It's a lot. And he says why it's a lot. Because in the last couple years, you get this amount. Compared to the last couple decades, right? I'm just paraphrasing. Last couple decades, you get this amount. So if you compare the two, it's a lot. He's not saying good or bad. He's saying it's a lot. Destiny's saying, oh, so what? Okay, well, yeah, so what? I'm using comparison. I'm saying immigration is a lot right now. Plain and simple. Either you argue it's not a lot or you argue it is a lot. You don't argue, oh, it's meaningless. That's not the point. It wasn't the point to argue whether it's meaningful or not. He's using the argument that it's a lot. Plain and simple. This is why I say it's disingenuous, because I know people like this are smart. Okay, they're not stupid, but they seem to be disingenuous. So they're playing dumb in a way. Okay.
Keep interrupting.
You said a lot, yeah.
You keep interrupting. So
okay.
If we're talking about quite a lot, you keep trying to make it a moral thing.
I'm not making it a moral thing.
If we're going to have a conversation, you're going to have to let me finish a sentence at least.
I think this is why people are saying that it's a shitty debate, because there's no moderator, right? We probably get that with my debate on with Alan sometimes. I'm trying to, again, excuse me, right? I'm still new to it, right? I'm trying to, if I'm having a debate, on my channel, I'm still trying to get used to it, because I want people to be able to talk, but I know that, over talking each other isn't a good thing. So I'm going to try to do better. Right. But yes, this kind of back and forth thing. Yeah. I can see why people are talking about a debate like this makes it annoying.
Well, just don't misquote my position.
Okay. So just calm down for a minute.
I'm super calm.
I know you've got your Red Bull.
See this, but he's not misquoting you, right? He's not misquoting you, because you're trying to make a more argument. He never said right or wrong. You did, right? You're saying, oh, it doesn't, okay, he's not saying it's right or wrong, but he's pointing out that it's meaningless. Why is it meaningless? Destiny would end the world with his ways. I agree. I mean, this is a thing where I find, I don't know, I find Destiny weird, right? That's why I say he's smart, yet stupid. Okay, this is why I feel like he's leaning way too much to be a liberal, to be progressive, a Democrat, whatever he's trying to be.
Just
I have my Red Bull. I'm still super calm.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a very simple question. Yeah.
Talking about in terms of pure numbers, right? If more people have come into a country in 35 years than have come in 2,000 years, that is objectively a lot. Now, you might think it's a good thing. Like, I like ice cream, and if I eat a tub of ice cream, I'm not going to say that's not a lot of ice cream. I still like it, but it's a lot of ice cream, right? We'd accept that. It's more, a scoop is not a lot of ice cream, a tub is a lot of ice cream. So more people coming into a country in 35 years than had come in 2,000 years is objectively a lot of people, okay?
Just to be clear, when you say a lot, that's a normative value that's with respect to some kind of norm or when you say a lot.
Oh, yeah, compared to before.
Yeah,
compared
that's
to the
objectively,
entire span of the
that is
history of this
objectively true. It's just kind of a meaningless statement.
You.
Like
So
everything is.
It's not a meaningless statement, because you asked for mass migration. This is why, I'm sorry, this is why I said it, right? And I wish the commenters would point it out, right? Yes, how they're talking is like bickering, and that's the point, that's the problem with the moderator, right? Because how people talk will talk like this, because they would talk over each other, they would try to do, because this is the thing, this is, if it was a good moderator, he would say Destiny. The question was, right, you talked about it, mass migration. Literally, Konstantin is talking about mass migration. So now you're saying it doesn't matter, but that doesn't, no, it does matter, because we're talking about mass migration. You're being obtuse. You're being purposely stupid, dishonest, right? Disinformation agent Destiny. Exactly, I agree.
A lot
You've
more
accepted
than
that what I'm saying is objectively true. I'm grateful.
Correct, yes. It's a meaningless statement, but yes.
Now that we've got there, what does it mean? Well, first of all, think about it like this. And again, it's not about whether you like it or not, whether you think it's a good thing or not, or a bad thing. The three biggest cities in this country, in the last 30 years, have ceased to be majority inhabited by the people who are native to this land. That's just a fact. And I am one of the people who's come here in that time. So I'm not saying it's only a terrible thing, but it's an objective fact. The three biggest cities in the country are now majority minority. London, and this has happened very quickly. London was 80% white British in 1991. It is probably around 30% white British today. So if you have seen that level,
and I think that's stupid, right? I mean, like if TBD was here, you know, we could say something. But this is the thing where this is why I think the UK is stupid, and this is why the America should watch out, right? White Americans should watch out. Hell, I think Black Americans should watch out too, right? The increase of Muslims, the increase of other nationalities, trying to overtake, you know, the Black population, Hispanics. Right, Hispanics are trying to you know, outpace the Black population in population. I think you should watch out. I think Black people should watch out for that, and this is why also the stupidity of white people, right, of white liberals. You are literally killing yourself, right? You're literally killing your people, right? Your community, whatever. You're willingly killing it. He said 80%, right? 80% white at one time. Now it's like 30% white. That is insanely stupid. And that is insanely absolute mind-boggling. How can you let your group, right, diminish by that degree? That is pure stupidity. This is why I've said this. The UK is going to shit. The UK, London, whatever, they're going to shit, right? I believe in the next 50, maybe 100 years, maybe even less, right? I think they will be overtaken by minorities and Muslims. I believe, mark my words, in the next 50 years, right? In the next 50 years, maybe around that, right? I would think that the UK will be overtaken by Muslims and minorities. Whether that's good or bad, well, we'll see how it goes. But they have no one to blame but themselves. I will say this again. White people will have no one to blame but themselves. Right? White people will have no one to blame but themselves. They will outpace Black people. They still have families. Yes. And that's insanity, right? The Black Americans should have the second largest population in America. I believe that they will I believe other minority groups will outpace them. Right?
Of change in the city in which you live. Think about this as well. 3/4 of the people who live in this country today are over the age of 35. So all of this has happened within the lifetime of one generation, effectively. That is a level of change that is A, completely unprecedented, B, extremely transformative, whether you like it or not, good or bad, whatever you may think. I
think they're going to talk about the whole unprecedented thing. It is true, right? Unprecedented. It's never happened before, right? Who knows if it will happen in the future, but this one thing is something that has never happened before, okay? Okay, that's it. Not that hard.
Think, oh, you know, the amount of different kinds of food has got better. It's true, objectively. But it's also true, objectively, that entire swathes of this city are no longer inhabited by the people who used to live here. Again, this is an objective fact. You can like it, you can dislike it, but that is something that has happened. This is true of London, it's true of Manchester, it's true of Birmingham, and it's true of several other smaller cities in this country. By 2060, according to current projections, white British people will become a minority in this country.
That is insane. And you know what? Like I said, the only one to blame is white people. I will say this again. In America, if this happens in America, the only one to blame are white people, right? If you allow this the liberal ideology to poison your nation, then you know that is your fault. And again, UK has only itself to blame. I'm literally seeing what UK is doing right now. They're like, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're a monarchy. I don't know if they changed to just a democracy, you know. Maybe the royal family has zero power, which is kind of crazy, but
2060 is the next 35 years, right? And that's the entire kind of demographic transformation. These are facts. Forget about people's opinions, my opinion, your opinion. In terms of illegal immigration, there are now almost 1 million, we don't know exactly because it's hard to measure, but we have almost 1 million illegal immigrants in Britain today, which for a population of 70 million is quite a lot. And we currently spend £14 million a day spent. I'm not talking about the cost to the taxpayer of having 1 million illegal immigrants here. I'm talking about how much we spent to accommodate them and all other things. Now, 14 million, is that a lot per day? It's quite a lot. But also this is happening at an unprecedented rate. More people come to Britain illegally today than came legally when I came here in 1996. I'll say that again. More people come here illegally every year than came here in 1996 when I came here. That's the level of change when it comes to illegal immigration, and the cost of it, £14 million a day, is increased by a factor of 10 in the last 10 years alone. So it's 1,000% more than what it was. Those are the facts about immigration. So when we talk about immigration and whether it's compatible with national identity, it depends what we mean. If we're talking about, 20, 30, 40,000 people a year, highly selective from compatible cultures as it used to be, perfectly compatible, and in fact, I think probably quite desirable. If we're talking about what we've seen over the last 30 years, I don't think it's compatible with any sort of national identity.
I was going to talk about this, right? Probably not today, but I'm definitely mention it. Muslim nations, Muslim people, right? Muslim people are not compatible to the West. 100%. Muslim people are not compatible to Christian nations. They're not, right? This is why, Buddhism, right, is compatible, because they're just let live, right? They're not a type of religion that wants to conquer, right? Buddhism, right? A very popular Asian religion. It's not a type of religion that wants to conquer, right? It's not. Islamic religion, right? In its text, it has specifically said to conquer, right? To conquer, to spread your influences. Okay. Again, that's what I've heard, right? That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard people read to me, right? So, just by that alone shows you that they're not, the Muslims, Islam is not compatible with any kind of Christian nation.
Identity at all. Now, I've been talking for a long time, so we can get to national identity after you've addressed that.
Sure. So I guess the thing that is a little bit strange to me about the immigration question is that sometimes I'll hear a bunch of descriptions laid out, and I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do with them. There's oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing to any particular idea about what an ideal immigrant would look like. And then it feels like we're...
An ideal immigrant. I mean, easy. An immigrant that follows the laws of the land, that is a productive citizen, okay, that, assimilates to the land's culture, okay, that assimilates to the land's culture. I was thinking it's like, give me a minute. There was a TikTok I had that, showed you what I had it a while ago. Don't know if I still have it.
Sometimes also lumping a ton of immigrants together. So for instance, when we say there have been so many more immigrants that have come here in the past 30, 35 years, but then we also mention like illegal immigrants or asylum seekers, these are all different groups of people. So I don't know why. I
separated them out. I talked about legal immigration and illegal immigration, right?
I understand, but so the prompt has to do with basically can a country's culture, whatever, survive mass migration? Illegal immigrants are not mass migrating here. The mass migration...
They are. So I just told you, more illegal immigrants come here every year now than legal immigrants came here 30 years ago.
I understand that, but if you look at
they are mass migrating.
So then are the legal ones mass migrating, or what? Is it just...
The legal immigrants are also mass migrating. It's possible for them both to be mass migrating.
But it's like 10 to 1, right? So so comparing the two, it seems like we're talking about different kinds of... We're probably talking about different kinds of immigrants. When we talk about legal versus illegal.
We're talking about both, yeah.
Well, no.
I'm talking about both.
You don't see any difference between a legal immigrant versus an illegal immigrant?
Well, of course I do.
Okay.
But they are both mass migrating here. They're both coming here in unprecedented numbers.
Everything definitionally is unprecedented as you move forward in years. We have an unprecedented amount of technology, an unprecedented amount of energy generation, an unprecedented amount of...
I think you might be confused about the meaning of the word unprecedented.
Unprecedented is, and it hasn't happened at that level before. Yeah.
Right, so if we have immigration of 20,000 people a year, that wouldn't be unprecedented because we had that before.
Yeah, but the population is growing of the country, the population of the rest of the planet is growing, the economy is growing, there's a whole bunch of other factors at play. It's not like all else equal, there's just 10 million people that have shown up. like there's other factors at play at all points in time as well. So
Yes,
it's a bit reductive to say like, well, we have an unprecedented wave of whatever. There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year forward into the future we go.
No, that's
yes.
not true.
What's the thing that's been frozen in time?
I just explained it to you.
Yes, you laid out a bunch of numbers, and I just explained why they're contextless and meaningless. But now I'm asking, what is the thing that's unprecedented?
Look,
or I'm sorry, what would be a thing that is?
Well, like I said, right? Destiny is not wrong, but he's not necessarily right. Okay. Yes, every year something could be unprecedented, right? Yeah, probably, but it has to be never happened before. Okay. Because every new iPhone comes out isn't unprecedented, and every iPhone comes out every year. So really, that's not necessarily true, right? The first iPhone, yes, it's unprecedented, right? Because it never did it before, and it hasn't been out since, right? There's no new phone, right? New phone that comes out that's revolutionary. So Destiny's not necessarily wrong, but he's not actually right, okay? Because you can see the example, okay? Saying that every year, right? Every year something is going to be, no, that's not true at all, okay? It has to be something that's totally different, that's never happened before. So if in 1 year, 100 million people, right, came into a country, right, and that never happened before, that is unprecedented, okay? Now, the next year, you think another 100 million? No. So unless 100 years, maybe 100 years later, then another 100 million came in, okay. But it took that long to establish that amount. So this is the thing where he's wrong, but his idea is not necessarily wrong.
Not changing in the past 30 years. Like if you had to look at something.
One of the most amazing things of arguing with anybody from your position is the extent to which they refuse to understand what words mean. I just explained to you repeatedly what unprecedented means. It means that it hasn't happened before. There have been times in the history of this country when its immigration was in the tens of thousands, and for us to go back to that would not be going forward to something unprecedented. It would be returning to something that we used to do.
Sure.
Right?
My question
and so what has happened in the last 30 years is unprecedented.
Is there anything in?
Yes, right. Like I said, right. If 100 million came today, that is unprecedented. Now, if next year another 100 million, that's the same. So it's not unprecedented. Now it's like 200 million, 300 million, then yes, it is. But see, this is where Destiny is probably wrong.
U.S. culture, in British culture, that has remained the same for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, for the past 100 years, that doesn't have an unprecedented.
It's not necessarily the same, but it's being consistent, okay? It's being a bit consistent. You could fluctuate, right? Could be 2 million today, 10 million tomorrow, right? It could be 1 million next day, right? It fluctuates, but the difference between 2 million today, 100 million tomorrow, right? That would be the disparity.
And anything happening constantly.
Absolutely. I mean, that is what a culture is. It is what is preserved over time.
How?
A culture is what people do without having been told to do so by a law.
But what is an example of a culture that is unchanging?
How much have you traveled around the world?
Probably more than you?
Probably not, actually.
Okay. So then you should be able to very easily answer. Well, here's an example of a culture that exists.
Well, every time I try and answer your question, you keep talking over me.
Well, it's because when you answer, you ramble and say irrelevant things. So my question is...
How can I ramble
Destiny
in half a
more.
sentence?
You've been saying plenty of sentences. Do you think the speaking time up to this point is even, or do you think you've spoken more than me?
I have spoken more than you, but I haven't
so then
interrupted
you've had an opportunity to speak. You're just not answering my question. So my question is very simple. What's a culture that you feel has been unchanged for the past 50 years? Or what is an example of cultural preservation? I feel like cultures are evolving all the time. It's definitionally a part of culture.
Of course. Cultures are evolving all the time. But if you were to be plonked in 1970s Afghanistan and 1990s Afghanistan and 2010s Afghanistan and 1950s Britain, 1970s Britain and 2010s Britain, there would be common themes that run through both of those places so that you would instantly recognize, I am in Afghanistan, I am in Britain. Would you accept that?
I agree that different cultures are different, yes.
Right, well done. Good. So we've got there then.
Well, you just established that this is like saying
different cultures are different, which means that they have something about them.
Yes. And
that makes them different.
If you have a brother, both of you will be different for your entire lives.
But there would be a family culture that you have that's different to other families.
But you wouldn't be the same as you were when you were 10 years old.
No,
you
you
grow
wouldn't.
and change,
Of
right?
course.
So when you talk about
But you're still
preserving
the same
culture,
person, right?
What?
You're still the same person.
Yeah, but you're dramatically changed.
But you're still the same.
No. Are you the same as you were 10 or 15 years ago? What do you mean by that? The same.
But you're not a different person. This is the thing where this is why Destiny is being dishonest. me as a baby, that's still me, right? It's not like now I'm like, black, right? It's not now that I'm adult, I'm black. No, I'm still Asian. I'm still genetically me. I'm still me. I'm the same person. Yes, you can change inside, right? Personality, you can change mindset, you could change, but you're still you. That's the thing where Destiny is being wrong, he's being obtuse, he's being dishonest. A culture, a nation can change, but it will still be that type of nation, okay? I don't know, like things like America has changed throughout the years, okay? Throughout the decades, but we still know what is America in a sense, okay? In a sense that the difference between America, right? If you get plopped in America, between the difference you get plopped in Vietnam, there's a difference. Sometimes he does prove that he's not that smart, or he's smart, but he's being purposely stupid, right? So it's hard with the liberals, right? It's hard with the liberals because it's either they're smart or they're being purposely stupid. It's hard to know which one, right? It's hard to know which one. Because you know what, this is the thing where Alan, a little while back when I debated Alan, okay, one of the things he brought up is like, oh, do you understand fascism, or do you have the definition of fascism? Yes, I didn't have the definition off the top of my brain, but I knew that it was in the sense that it brought up the idea, like the surrounding idea of like a dictatorship. I don't have direct definition, so it's being obtruse, right? It's being dishonest. Where it falls into a lot of these categories, right? Like communism, just being a bad thing, right? Being a bad thing. We as a culture, as America, the UK, we know what it's like, right? That's what it is, right? What America is like, it's different. It's different if you plop yourself in America and compared to if you plop yourself in Russia, right? In China, in any things. There's a difference, right? There's a clear difference. TBD, what is up, my brother? What is up? How many people who shouldn't reproduce have been in the what? Definitely Destiny should not be reproducing.
You're not unchanged, right?
Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one?
So your claim was that we need to preserve culture because cultures aren't supposed to change.
No, that's not my claim.
Okay, then help me understand. So
I will.
Because if you don't
interrupting
remember,
me.
this whole topic started with, I'm curious, what is the thing that is precedented? What's the thing that happens continuously through all of history that isn't changing? And then you pointed to the fact that Afghanistan and the United Kingdom are different cultures. Like, that's something that I would reject.
No, I didn't. I was just explaining to you what cultures are, which are the cultural differences between groups of people that remain fairly constant over time, despite changing somewhat, as all cultures do.
Your definition of culture is the difference between your culture and another culture?
No, I gave you my definition.
You just said it was the differences between cultures that change over time that define one culture against another one.
Okay, let's reset. And you talk for a bit, and then I talk for a bit, and then you talk for a bit.
Well, no, because I noticed that this is how it feels like that by the end of a sentence, I feel like you haven't really said much at all. And I'm just kind of curious why, when you guys speak about things like the preservation of culture, I don't really hear you allude to any.
No, because Destiny is trying to boggle, right? He's trying to pretty much do a whole lot of word salad to discombobulate or mix up Konstantin's arguments. That's a tactic he's using, right? It's a weak tactic. Is he one of that stream? Destiny is a streamer, yes.
Thing concrete. Or when you talk about wanting to preserve something, you talk about how something has changed. I don't necessarily hear like what are the things that are changing that you don't like. You'll point to things like crimes, but I mean, like, crimes are illegal. Obviously, they shouldn't be happening.
Well, what's one of the things like? Okay, dominant religion. The dominant religion. In the West, right? Dominant religion, okay, in the West is Christianity. That shouldn't change. It's plain and simple, right? We shouldn't be desiring Sharia law, okay? I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the UK, 40% of Muslims want Sharia law. Are you kidding me? No, if you want Sharia law, go back to the Middle East. That's the thing. It shouldn't change. It should be a Christian nation. Plain and simple, right? America should be a Christian nation. That's how it is. I think the UK is Roman Catholic. Whatever. Okay. Basically, I mean, there's a bit difference, but it's basically the same. But what it's established religion should be like that. It should stay like that. Okay.
I just don't really hear anything concrete ever, and it's very unsatisfying to listen to a bunch of people kind of ramble on and on and on without ever having a feel are common. Maybe you go back 30, 40, 50 years that were common across the whole country that you feel are changing in a way that they never changed in the past.
Okay, done?
Are you going to answer that question? He's not going to answer the question. Go ahead.
I've attempted to answer your question many times, and I'll do so again. However, first of all, am I going to be okay to speak now for a bit? Is that going to happen?
Sure. Can you repeat my question first so I know what you're...
Your question is about what is culture. You brought up crime.
That wasn't my question. My question is, over the past 30 or 40 years, what are things that have changed in American or British culture that you feel over the past 200 years before that were unchanging?
Okay. One of the things that has changed in Britain over the last 30 years is we now have an extensive number of Islamist terrorist attacks, mass stabbings, mass rape of British girls by Islamist and Muslim grooming gangs. This is not something that happened in this culture before.
Okay, so sexual assault and rape did happen before in
Did you hear the word?
He didn't see this. See that's it. That's the dishonesty. That's the dishonesty of someone like Destiny, of the liberals. He didn't say, right, SA crimes didn't happen. That's not what he said, right? Throughout the years, right, Muslim Islamic crimes didn't happen in the West. That is what he said. That is the change. Do you agree or you disagree? No. You didn't say you're dishonest. So you're not saying you agree or disagree. You want to try to change the topic, right? You want to try to change his answer. It's like, oh, so you're saying that SA crimes never happened. No, that's not what I said. Right? That's not what he said. And that is the whiskey. What is up, my brother? What is up? The sea. There will be no starvation now. Whiskey. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. That's why that is the problem with a lot of liberals. That is how they argue. They will try to change your answer to make it like mute or invalidate your answer.
As I said, or did
so you said grooming gangs. I know there's the example from the 80s and 90s of the Rotherham.
They're not from the 80s and 90s. They're happening right now.
What is another grooming gang example? Because I know there are rapes and stuff that happen, but I don't. Groomers are different than grooming gangs. A group of people getting together to groom in this case, right? Muslim to groom women. It didn't happen before. Gangs? What gang? Name a gang. The UK can literally name. They have arrested grooming gangs, Muslim grooming gangs. Literally, the UK has arrested this group of people, or they have targeted these group of people before. Tell me, throughout history, pick a grooming gang out there. Pick one anywhere in the West. I don't know any. I mean, I would love to educate me. He's gaslighting. 100% he is. All right. Red Door, my sister. Thank you for being here, guys. I love you. There are.
Yeah, well, let me explain it to you. So grooming gangs, this is a euphemism that we use to pretend that they're not what they are mass rape gangs where young British girls, usually underage, but also often sometimes young women, would be plied with drugs, plied with alcohol, would be taken from the care homes where they were, predominantly by Pakistani, sometimes other Indian subcontinent Muslims. They would be targeted primarily because they were white and British, so these were racially aggravated hate crimes. And they would be mass raped over periods of years sometimes. That did not used to happen in Britain. So that is a cultural change. Can I finish what I'm saying, please?
Okay, you're not going to answer my question. Okay.
I am answering
your question. You asked, in the last 50 years, what has changed, right? He literally gave you an answer, right? He just want to complete his thought. This is why I admit the comment section is... That's the problem with the comment section, where they're not pointing out. It's Destiny. Destiny is making this conversation unbearable. Okay? It's Destiny. And I'm sorry, this is kind of like how Alan go about it, right? This is how when I'm trying to talk with Alan, this is how he goes about it. Like, it's a complete reflection. It's a complete reflection of how when I debate with Alan, this is how it goes. I mean, you guys, do you not agree? I mean, do you not see this? I mean, a lot of you guys check out my debates with Alan before. Literally, you interrupt and you try to flip arguments, and you think that there's the question hasn't been answered. It has. You're just not accepting the answer.
My question was, what are examples? I don't think this has happened outside of the Rotherham grooming gang, that whole scandal. There have been rapes, there have been gang rapes, but the idea of like a coordinated grooming gang type mass Pakistani targeting British girls rapes, that type of thing, is not a thing that I'm aware has been seen in Britain outside of the large bathroom scandal.
So, well, I don't know. I think the fact that somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million British girls might have been raped by these gangs is quite a big deal, and it represents a change in the culture of this country that I think is quite
I never said it wasn't a big deal. I think rape is bad. I just think it's bad when white people do it too. I think it's bad when everybody does it. My understanding is right now for the crime stats in the United Kingdom, it tends to be more white people are even overrepresented in terms of sexual assault and rape. But I'm aware that there are immigrants that rape people as well. I think all rape is bad, but the idea that there is a mass Islamist, jihadist, rape gang-centered thing in the United Kingdom that's functioning,
So
I think
how many girls would have to be raped for you to admit that it's a mass thing?
the question isn't if it's a mass
Well,
thing. The question is if it's organized. There's a huge problem with definitions. I'm sorry, let me try to keep this quick. You're not understanding. You're not following the conversation.
Stephen,
rape is bad, but organized grooming gang
You've asked
rape
me a
is
lot of
that's a
questions,
different
and every
thing.
time I answer
Well,
them,
you're
you
not
ignore my
answering really
answer
at all.
in this way, specifically being targeted because they were not of a particular religion or ethnicity. How many of them would have to be treated in this way for you to admit that it's a mass thing? What's the number that makes a answer my question?
Wasn't I don't know how you would identify
Give
a
us a
mass
number.
thing.
Give us a
the question
number.
was
Give
organized
us a number.
grooming.
You said
500,001. So you're right. You're right beneath the threshold. Maybe tomorrow
Well,
you'll have it.
it's actually
so the question is there organized?
Between half a million
Okay,
and
so,
a million.
okay. I'll ramble for a second and then you can ramble after.
So
Because rape isn't bad enough. Now it has to be like a mass grooming gang rape thing. And then what happens is you conservatives, you play this.
No, there's not. See, this is the problem. This is the problem with liberals, right? This is the problem with liberals. No one's saying that. For some reason, Alan doesn't argue with me. No, because it's a good thing that Alan respects you, right? He has that. That's why Alan is cool, right? I mean, I'm just saying, like, he does demonstrate a lot of tendency like Destiny does, right? But Alan is cool. This is the problem with liberals, where you don't understand the argument. No one's saying that, grape in general is bad. Of course, it's bad. The problem is the difference, right? We are now having, right? It's not like a man targeting a woman. No. It's a group of men targeting multiple women. That's the thing. That's the difference, right? That's the difference. And that's not I don't know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but that has not really happened before, right? Or at least documented cases, okay? There's not been a group of men, particularly of one particular religion, right, targeting a type of women, usually young, underage, white women, right? They're targeting women. Literally, there's no argument in saying that, you know what, rape by these people are bad, but rape by these people aren't. No one's saying that.
Game where you falsely identify a problem, you lie to the audience about it, and then you manage to gain power. You go through with some cycled narratives over and over again, asking for another shot at it. It's happening right now. I mean, it didn't do anything really good for the United Kingdom at all, and then it's happening now. All your funding, you're going to have a no-wait NHS, and it's not going to have a prediction that once the Tories were out, your immigration numbers would be over 1 million per year. They plummeted to 300,000. I haven't heard you say anything about that. Your predictions were completely wrong, just as they were with Brexit as well.
Well, that was a wonderful presentation. The problem for you is I voted Remain in the referendum.
Because you hadn't been bullied by the Cambridge students yet. I'm aware of the history, but I know.
So, you've come here with a bunch of talking points. That's great.
Hold on. We can break down
Stephen,
anything you want.
Stop interrupting.
Don't accuse me of having talking points.
Stop
Deal with my
interrupting.
arguments.
Interrupting.
I believe in you.
Stop interrupting. I let you talk, and I let you make your points. Have some respect for me and for my opportunity to express myself as well. That is how a debate is conducted. So.
Whiskey, thank you for the love. Progressives get very emotional when they debate. Exactly, right? They do, right? And it's fine. Getting emotional is not a crime or a sin. But the problem is that they also try to get you emotional, right? That's my problem. It's okay if you're getting emotional. Your problem a lot of time is they try to get you emotional, okay? Because they know that if you hit the emotional triggers, you are possibly losing, right? Or it showcases that you might be losing.
Stop interrupting. We started this with a conversation about mass immigration, and I gave you the facts on it, and I defined what immigration is, right? Mass immigration. Now, you're talking about culture. I also explained to you what culture is, and I explained it to you by explaining that it's a continuity of certain things, which may also evolve over time. Now, in terms of your point about mass immigration since Brexit, I was not a supporter of Brexit. I didn't think it was necessarily a good idea, and I agree with you that it hasn't reduced immigration, but I don't see how that's relevant to this conversation. We have had mass immigration happen in this country continually over a long period of time, which has changed the country in the way that I gave you. And I gave you a number of examples, like Islamist terrorism, like grooming gangs, and other things, which I don't think you're able to address because they counteract the argument that you keep making, which is, well, nothing changes when you bring in a 58 million people over 30 years.
Did I say that?
Can I finish, please?
Did I say that?
Can
Why do you
I
have to
finish?
invent
Can I finish,
points?
please?
You
Can
just
I
can't
fin-
address anything.
Can I
say.
finish, please? If I
Pretend
interrupted
it's a
you,
podcast
if I
episode.
point that basically what I'm trying to say is, not trying to say, what I'm saying is, when you bring in large numbers of people into a country from a different culture, that will necessarily change the culture. The other thing that I explained to you is, there's been such a large wave of immigration into this country now that has fundamentally changed the sense of British people about the place in which they live. It is affecting the demographic dynamics of major cities in this country and the way people feel about that. But all of those things, the facts that I gave you about immigration, they are what they are. You can think that they're good. You can think.
But also, Destiny's doing those tricks, right? Where he points out other people. He's not talking about you directly. That's the problem, okay? Where you're having debate one-on-one, okay? He's answering your question, you're asking questions, whatnot. Then that's what I'm saying. He's bringing Brexit, he's bringing all these things that, and like Konstantin said, I didn't vote for that, all that shit. So you're not addressing me. You're addressing other people, and that's a problem as well.
That they're bad. That is a separate conversation. The facts are what they are, right? There's also a thing about how British people feel about it. When I came to this country in 1996, 3% of the British public thought that immigration was a major concern. Today, about 65 to 70% of British people say that there are too many immigrants in this country and too many immigrants coming here. Now, I think British people probably have a better idea of how they feel about immigration than you, Stephen, and that is how they feel.
Why do you think over half the British population believes that the majority of the immigrants here today are here illegally, if they've got such a great handle on it or a great idea?
He didn't say illegally. Did he say that? He said they're just not, they're not for immigration, okay? Because there's such a huge influx of immigrants. He didn't say legal or illegal. This is the problem with this man. This is the problem with progressive liberals. They want to interject certain words that you said
about what immigration is doing to the country.
The reason that people overestimate immigration is people generally, when asked about things, overestimate pretty much everything or underestimate things terribly because people are not very good with numbers. But the other reason, of course, people aren't able to quote you the exact number of people who
I didn't ask for a quote of the exact number.
You said this earlier, and I'm addressing your broader point, which is why do people misunderstand the immigration statistics, is that people don't look at immigration as this is the number of people who came this year and this is the number of people who came last year. They look at the reality of their lives, they look at the change they see around them, and what they're really concerned about is the cumulative impact of immigration over the period of their lifetime, which, as I explained to you, has been huge, unprecedented over the last 35 years, and will be even more unprecedented in terms of its cumulative impact over the next 35 years. Now, it's true that immigration has come down to 300 or something thousand in the last year. Doesn't mean it will stay that way, but also I never predicted it would get to 1 million. I think Matt did. But the point I would make is the transformation over a 30-year period is what people actually care about, and which is what they're right to care about. Now, as for the point about illegal immigration, yeah, it's true. Illegal immigration is a smaller percentage of the total immigration that we have than legal immigration, but it's still higher today than it was 35 years ago and 30 years ago, which is way too high. Illegal immigration should be zero. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Do we have any final thoughts before we move on to the next?
Yeah, I mean, every crime should be zero, but there's always going to be some amount of crime or some amount of illegal immigrants. I guess the issue I have is that
the issue I have is that it's progressives never say that. Yeah, we shouldn't have. This is I have such a problem with these liberals and the left. Why don't you just say that? Okay, yeah, we shouldn't have illegal immigrants. Okay, it's not that hard. Why can't we agree that the bad stuff are bad? Because a lot of these people don't view it as bad, that's the insanity of it. You can't even agree what is bad. That's why I have a problem with a lot of the liberals, the left, the progressive. They can't even agree on what is bad. Okay. The problem is British culture and the way of life is being destroyed. Exactly. It's exactly. When you see that, what the people around you, right, were 80% one way, right, during a certain time. Now they're only 40%, right? So the people you saw around you 30 years ago, now they're practically gone. It's crazy.
You say, why do the British people not understand the exact numbers? I didn't ask for the exact numbers, million or whatever illegals. That's a big ratio, 10 to 1 to be off by, to assume it's 50-50, or that there are more illegals than there are legal immigrants here. And I think the issue is people in your position, or people like Reform or Restore, depending on how far right you want to go, lie constantly about the immigrant population in the United Kingdom. And then as a result of selling those lies to the people, you get these ridiculous plans or attempts to fix it all in the United Kingdom. And because the problem was never as severe as it was stated in the first place, the problem ends up not being solved, and then you exacerbate other problems. So at the end of the Tory government with this attempt with like the Rwanda plan, this idea that you're going to ship people to other countries to have them processed first, or with the idea that leaving Brexit would give the UK greater control over their illegal immigrant population. And the reality is it did just the opposite. You didn't have the right to access the same people that were trying to claim asylum in the EU, and then if they were rejected once there, to send them back if they came to Britain next. You lost access to a lot of these things. And then the same people that were in charge of pushing those ideas are now telling you and selling you on the idea that reform is going to come in and somehow fix the very same issues that they've been lying about and have failed to fix in the past. And you might hear this talking point, this cope that, well, reform is different. We're not going to be like the old conservatives, but then you've got all your politicians are going to be MP Tories that are defecting to join the new reform party. So I don't know where all this new blood is going to come from. I don't know. It just seems like a whole bunch of like, here's a fake problem, I'm going to put it in front of you. There is like a real problem here, regardless of what you said earlier. I don't think rapes are good, mass rapes or normal rapes. I think there should be some probably cap on what type of immigrants and how many should come to the country. I just never really hear a discussion on any of that. I just hear 500,000 British girls have been gang raped by mass grooming gangs, and it wasn't like that when I came over in '96, despite the fact that those Rotherham grooming gang scandals started in the '80s. So I don't feel like I ever hear anything of substance being spoken about.
Well, it's a pity we didn't have someone from Reform on stage so you could rehash your Wikipedia talking points to them.
You're a Reform voter, though, right?
No, I've never
Really?
voted. I've never voted for Reform.
Would you vote for Reform in the upcoming election?
Depends on who stands in my constituency. Last election, I voted for a Liberal Democrat.
I didn't ask about last election. In the upcoming election, will you vote for Reform?
I will probably vote for the same person who's a Liberal Democrat.
Okay, so you don't think you would support the Liberal Reform guy? I don't know. In
Liberal
your
Reform. There's no party called Liberal
I'm sorry.
Reform.
You won't support the Reform candidate in whatever upcoming election. I don't know what constituency you live in.
I just told you that at the last election I voted for a Liberal Democrat.
Yeah, I know, but the reason why you're saying that is because you won't answer for the next one.
Stop interrupting.
Tell the question,
Stop
Dodge.
interrupting. Stop interrupting.
Yeah, go for it.
I just told you that at the last election I voted for a Liberal Democrat, and at the next election I intend to vote for him as well.
I'm just curious. You said in the past that you regret, or not that you regret, that you voted Remain for Brexit. Do you think that was a good vote? Do you think you should have remained, or do you think Brexit was a mistake?
I don't regret my vote for Remain, no.
Do you think Brexit was a mistake?
I think it had its negatives and positives, yeah. Like,
Are you sure you're not running for a political party right now? Because that was the most politician answer I've ever heard in my life. Do you think that on net was Brexit a mistake?
Every decision has trade-offs that are positive and negative.
Remember what I said earlier about saying words that mean nothing? Obviously, this is true. But I'm asking, do you think that Brexit on net, was it a mistake?
I think a lot of people think that Brexit ruined the economy.
I'm not asking what a lot of people think. I'm asking you on net. Do you think that Brexit was a mistake?
I think it had some things that made things worse, and I think it had some that...
If you were God and you could choose 51%, they would Brexit, or 49%, and then they would remain in the European Union?
I honestly don't know.
Okay. But so the reason why I asked this question...
My problem is that certain liberals, you need to have opinions on everything, right? You need to have opinions on everything and anything. If he doesn't really, if he doesn't really know much about Brexit, okay, so what? It's not the biggest deal ever.
To illustrate, I asked this question to illustrate how frustrating it is when people like you say things like, well, I voted Liberal last election, or I voted Remain. Okay, you don't stand by that anymore, though. You constantly do this thing. No, you don't. You constantly do this thing where you come on stage, or you go on your show, and you'll say things like, I used to be a Liberal, but the Liberals have changed so much, or I used to be a left-leaning person. I know you've tweeted the dumb picture. I know you've done it. They've changed so much, and now I have to identify with the center-right. I've heard you literally say things like Tommy Robinson makes statements to the left on immigration compared to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
He does.
Yeah, okay.
He does.
I've heard you say things like that, right? But then when I ask, but then you guys say that everybody else has changed, and then I ask you about your past political votes, you won't defend them. So it seems like you're the one that's changed, which is fine. But you should just own that.
It would weaken Europe's ability to stand up to Russia. I think I've been proven right on that. And I think the division within Europe has made Europe weaker in terms of its ability to stand up to Russia, and I think we've seen that. So in that respect, I think I was right to vote Remain. What I don't agree with is the narrative that a lot of people like to spin, that Brexit ruined the economy. I don't think that's true at all. If you look at the way other European economies are performing, they're performing even worse than the British economy. So my attempt to give you a nuanced answer is not my refusal to stand by my vote. It's an attempt to use my brain and give you a nuanced answer. Now, in terms of final, did you want to...
Whiskey, the love. Thank you for the love. I stopped drinking 8 days sober with God's help. Whiskey, congratulations. Please continue, right? I think that's so good for you. Like, literally, I just had someone I knew, right? Someone I knew had a heart attack, right? She had a heart attack. That day, she stopped smoking. She had a heart attack, and that day she stopped smoking. My brothers, just think about your health, right? Think about yourself, okay? You don't have to be 100%, right? Amazing. But drinking and smoking is definitely a higher vice than, I don't know, eating candy. Now, candy's not necessarily being good, but there's a difference. There's a level difference, right? Drinking, right? Alcohol or smoking, it's not necessarily the same comparative to candy. And it's also moderation. It's also moderation. Okay. Now, if you want to drink, I'm not saying you stay sober, my brother. Stay sober. I'm just giving an example. If you drink once a week, not great. Once a month, moderation is always a good thing, right? Be moderate. I haven't drank. I mean, I haven't drink actual liquor. Let's see. I mean, when I went to Vietnam, I had a beer. I didn't like it. I wasn't that don't like sweets. Yeah, it's all good, right? I had a beer, didn't care for it. But before that, I didn't drink any liquor until, what was it? Halloween of last year. Well, Halloween, which would be only last year. So yeah, so it's all in moderation. But congratulations, whiskey, mad support. 8 days sober. Hopefully it will continue.
Wrap up and move on.
Yeah, just final thoughts on this topic. That would be great, guys.
Yeah, so final thoughts on this topic. I would just recap and maybe add one other thing. We have had a level of mass immigration into Britain that has been extremely disruptive over a fairly short period of time, that has created an environment in which major cities in this country are effectively no longer the domain of the native population of this country, which is very, I think culturally there have been some terrible things that have happened. I mean, the example of terrorism and grooming gangs is just one of them. In the by-election in Gorton Denton, the Green candidate campaigning in Urdu, that is and I think what that signals is a democracy candidate, or the things that a lot of this would have been much easier to manage if we hadn't also at the same time had the doctrine of diversity, inclusion, and multiculturalism, which have, instead of creating a monoculture into which people are encouraged to buy in and integrate, have instead created a society in which people are encouraged to see themselves as members of an individual community, which I think is essentially the end of a democratic process the way we've understood it to this point. So I think these are all terrible developments, and if this continues, it will only get worse.
Thank you.
I mean, we introduced new things, so I don't know. I don't know what the.
I want to show this video. It changed my mind on a lot of things. Right, this video.
Multiculturalism has failed. My solution has I've always said, multiculturalism has failed. My solution has I've always said, look, we need pluralism.
But aren't you both brilliant examples of how multiculturalism has succeeded? Because you've been talking about British values.
Yes, indeed.
You're wearing a magnificent turban.
Indeed.
You're wearing the kippah, which are absolutely right that you should do so. But that kind of goes against what you're saying.
No, on the contrary, what we are an example of, and a very shining, brilliant example of, is pluralism. That we are first and foremost British.
I didn't really know pluralism.
At the same time, our ethnic heritage, our religious heritage, we have kept it alive and very well and integrated into British society. And that, in my opinion, that is pluralism, that there is no competing culture, right? I have very much integrated my Indianness into my Britishness. And that is pluralism. That's not multiculturalism.
Okay. I quite fancy a turban myself.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I 100% agree. I've always said I'm American. American. I'm proud to be American, okay? I love America. I love being an American. And being...
Yeah, I said some other stuff, but I mean, I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was a really interesting thought process.
Culture
How
is.
many final thoughts are we going to have?
Well, I mean, when we introduce new concepts like DEI was why Liz Truss, helped 700,000 people come to this country from mainly non-EU places. I just don't know how DEI was the policy there from the Tories that enabled all that mass migration. When we talk about the monoculture,
you're right,
I don't know about the United. Don't have much of a monoculture. I don't know if they've ever had a monoculture. I know in the United States we talk all the time about the difference between city slickers and the good old people in the country and doing the farms and everything. But then we're also simultaneously very concerned about demographic change in the cities. But then at every other point, it seems like the country-related people hate the urban-related culture anyway. So yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting at some point, maybe at some time in your life, if you ever wanted to dive into these issues for real, maybe on your show or with somebody you're more comfortable with who won't challenge you as much. It'd be interesting that, like, changing culture would require you to identify some fundamental aspect of the culture of a country and then to point out to how that fundamental aspect is changing. When you say immigrants are coming and a lot of them commit crime, it's not really a real answer. It's not very satisfying. It's not really getting to the heart of the issues. And
Shall we move on to wokeism?
Sure.
So the question is, speaking of culture, has wokeism caused harm to the political climate?
You want to go first again?
Yeah, sure. My question is going to be the exact same as the last one. How do we define wokeism? And can we name like 3 woke policies that we think are destroying Western culture?
You're a participant in this debate, so why don't you define them?
Well, the thing is, I can't, because your guys' definitions for everything change at all points in time. That's always the issue. That's always the frustrating thing when it comes to fighting
Who's us guys?
conservatives.
I'm not a conservative.
I know you
so-
say you're not, but the conservative identification of wokeism and the idea that wokeism, whatever
Let's
that
forget about
boogeyman-
conservatism. Let's
Okay.
talk about wokeness. So
Okay.
what would be your definition of wokeness?
in the broadest sense, usually it's social issues that are very, very far left of the norm, I guess. But these positions in the United States at least tend to be held by...
Such as?
It might be certain things related to, I mean, trans people are obviously the hot go-to topic for everybody. It might be things specifically related to trans people. It might be things related to...
I do think that's a tactic, right? Talking fast to try to shake things up. I think it's a tactic.
They call it CRT, now they call it, or there was affirmative action, then CRT, then DEI. It might be people who are socialists, about the economy, whatever that means to people. It really depends on where you're at, who would consider what woke, or what the conservative boogeyman of the day is.
I don't know what the conservative point of view. So your point of view is that wokeness is about trans people and DEI?
That seems to be the case when I look at
So
conservatives.
that's your definition?
I don't define things as wokeism. It seems like a really vapid, stupid definition. I would just talk about the issue or the policy
I
itself.
guess your issue is with the topic of our debate then.
Well, no, because I think that you obsessively talk about wokeism, so it's probably a good thing for us to have a discussion
I'm asking
on.
you to define it so that instead of continually asking me questions and then pretending not to understand my answers, we actually address your argument. So
If you feel like there's an answer I don't understand, you can feel free to ask me to explain your answer. I can do it with ease. They're very simple. You only need the...
So we're clear about
the
what we're
median
discussing.
view on social beliefs, the things that are to the furthest left, the most progressive, the most college student-y, young things, they tend to be around like gender things or minority issues or LGBTQI, whatever status. These tend to be like things that people identify as woke.
So what we're discussing in this section of the debate is whether far left politics and progressivism has ruined society. Is that the discussion?
Yeah, sure.
What would you mean?
The question was on wokeism.
Right.
The issue is...
And I got you to define it as far left progressivism.
Yes.
So
insofar as I would define it, I don't see it as a major threat, at least to the United States, because I don't think that the people that tend to hold these views have any real political power. It tends to be college kids and people on Twitter. But conservatives are very concerned about this, and they talk about these issues all the time, and then they use them to power their policy.
This is a thing where stop thinking about just political power. What does a political power do? What is political power? This is the stupidity, okay? You gotta imagine this, okay? Black people, the black community has the second most political power out of any other racial group. Black community has, I believe, the second most political power out of all other racial groups. Yet the Asian community is outpacing black people. Who gives a shit about political power? It's social power is a thing as well. Okay, social power is the thing as well. I just talked about how Jaden Ivory, an NBA player, okay, he got either fired or suspended because of his Christian views on the alphabet community. He got suspended because of his Christian views of the alphabet community. You think politicians interfere in that shit? Stop with the political. This is the dishonesty that I'm talking about. The disingenuousness of liberals and progressives and the left, shit like that. You think political power is anything and everything? No. In our everyday life, political power isn't the biggest thing. And here's the thing, okay? Here's another thing. Overtaxing us, right? Overtaxing us so we can pay for, I don't know, socialist ideology like free supermarkets, free whatever else. Yeah, you're hurting us. You're overtaxing us for stupid shit, right? Add more to the welfare state. Yeah, you're hurting us to give Section 8 housing to fucking stupid people. So yes, that's the political power right there. That's the left's political power.
That ended up being even more regressive than the super woke stuff was progressive, because it wasn't really manifesting in a real way anyway. And now I have a country where half the states don't really have the ability to get an abortion for women because people thought that every 4-year-old was being forcibly transitioned to another gender.
Why would you have to? Seriously, again, another issue. You want abortion rights for all? Okay, stupid thing you want? That's idiotic. I believe that's really idiotic. I mean, like, that's the. Again, that's the, you got to think, right? Liberal ideologies that are destroying the world. How millions upon millions of black babies were deleted, and why the black population isn't growing all that much. Okay, they aren't growing all that much. You can see how progressive ideology is hurting our nation, how birth rates are going down. That's not beneficial to a nation.
It's my issue with it.
Well, that's your country and your issue. But just coming back to our definition so that we can know what we're discussing. What you're addressing is, has far-left progressive politics had a negative impact on our society? That's how you understand this discussion, correct?
Am I going to say yes here, and you're going to go, I'm glad you agree that wokeism is far left?
No.
Yeah, I guess yes, that would be my understanding of this discussion,
Okay,
yes.
so
yes.
good. Now we know what we're actually discussing. So in terms of its impact, I mean, one of the most obvious things, and I brought
What
up,
is your definition of wokeism?
I agree with you. I agree with your definition.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think it's okay to agree on a definition to have the discussion, right?
That's why I did it, so that we could agree on the definition.
Oh, okay. It felt a little bit more passive-aggressive than that, but my bad.
Well,
I
that's your
misinterpreted
bad. Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
I've worked out the tricks that you play, and so I've trapped you in your own logic.
And to be clear, the trick that I just played was asking you for the definition of a term.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right,
That's
my bad.
right.
I
That's
know that
right.
we don't like that here.
Exactly
Okay, my
right.
bad. Okay, go
That's
ahead.
exactly right.
A definition for a term that, you know what, to be honest, you will probably pick at, right? You will probably pick out when, to be honest, he would have. This is the thing where, because you can imagine in a parallel world where Constantine will say this exact same thing, and then, I don't know, Destiny will say, oh, that's not true, whatever. It's better to know your argument so he can, facilitate his argument into it.
Because what you do is you don't define it yourself, so that you can then argue with my definition for half an hour, and so we can't have the actual debate. Now be quiet, and I'm going to 10 minutes to get you to define woke. I'm glad we did it. Now, if your understanding of the question is, has far-left progressive politics made our societies worse? I completely agree with your definition, and I agree with the premise of the question that it has made things worse for a number of reasons. I mean, the trans thing became a big talking point because it's so ridiculous, not because it's so hugely actually impactful on society, although I do think a small number of children being given puberty blockers and an even smaller number of children being given gender transition surgery is a terrible thing that's happened. I think more broadly, though, I mean, one of the most obvious examples is we now have a society which...
Let's say this, right? We have a society that the growing mental instability of our nation is alarming. More and more people are identifying as stupid, as retarded. Why? What do you mean they're identifying as retarded? More and more people are identifying as trans, non-binary, gay, lesbian, whatever else, right, of the alphabet community. So you are literally saying that you are mentally unstable. You are abnormal. It is what it is, right? If you're abnormal, I get it. But here's the thing. That is idiotic, okay? That is idiotic because I honestly believe that it's a trend. These people are jumping on the trend train, right? You're non-binary. You're neither a man or a woman. You are trans of whatever sort. You're not doing it because of some weird feeling you had. No, you're doing it because you know what, you want to jump on the the trendy shit. So we have more and more unstable people who don't understand reality. Okay. That's the ridiculous of it.
I mean, it's not codified and it's not expressed in in the, like, no one says publicly we now discriminate against these groups of people, unless occasionally they do. So, for example, the Royal Air Force in this country, when they were in a recruiting drive, they were really struggling to get pilots. And there was a woman there who got fired from the Royal Air Force because she refused to go along with the policy. Her supervisor said to her, "We're not hiring any more useless straight white men." She said, "I don't agree with this policy, it's discriminatory," and she was fired. We've had a system of anti-male, anti-white...
Can I just ask a quick question?
No,
So I would have
I'm
looked
not
that up.
finished
The
yet.
Royal Air
I'm
Force
not
had a
finished
policy
yet.
of not hiring straight white men.
I'm not finished yet.
Is that true?
I'm not finished yet.
Okay. I have a feeling it's not, but okay.
So this is something you can look up. It was covered extensively in the news in this country. Probably wasn't covered that well on Wikipedia where you did the research, but...
No, but on The Sun and all of your favorite publications, I'm sure they talked about it a lot.
No, actually, it was covered extensively across the mainstream
And what they
media.
covered was that the Royal Air Force
Can
was
I
not
finish
hiring
my
straight white
points,
men. Well, you
Stephen?
seem to respond to something to others.
Well,
so that wasn't the policy. I can tell because you're not answering
that was the policy that was pursued by the Royal Air Force. It was revealed by this whistleblower who was fired for revealing it. The BBC in this country has internships that are not available to white people. We effectively have created a system of passive, tacit, sometimes open discrimination against different groups of people. And one of the reasons that the sort of reactionary sentiment, which you try and paint me as representing, which I don't, is rising in this country and rising quite quickly, including ethno-national...
And that's the thing where it's like, I believe because of leftist liberal ideology, we don't have discourse. We can't have discourse. okay? Because everything always results in hatred, huge disagreements, huge, like we can't just sit and talk to each other anymore, right? We can't just hash out ideas, have actual debates, which, I love that, people are trying, all right? People are trying to fight against that narrative, but it's like, I've said this before. I've seen plenty of liberals, plenty of progressives, they will break up relationships. They will break up marriages, families, right? Disown your father, disown your mother, disown your children, just because of difference of opinions.
The sentiment is because of this. And the reason I opposed wokeness from the very beginning and far-left progressivism from the very beginning was that it was obvious to me that the number one consequence of pursuing radical left-wing progressivism and racial essentialism of this kind would be that the majority population would begin to pursue identity politics for itself. If you discriminate against white men and say so openly, it's going to be a very short period of time before white men look at that and say, well, if we're now picking people for jobs based on skin color, I am the oppressed minority now, or I'm the oppressed majority now, we need to look after my interests. And the reason you see the reactionary forces rising both in America, in the rest of Europe, and in this country is precisely because they've been pushed into this corner by woke leftists. And that is one of the major ways that this movement has damaged our society, as I predicted all along.
So I would say the least impressive thing about conservative predictions is that typically what they'll do is they will build their own enemies, they will cry about the enemies, and then when they manage to convince everybody else that those enemies are real, and then those people react against.
Oh, really? They built their own enemy. Yeah. So white men are honestly, I show you videos every day, right? Women honestly targeting men. I'm not saying that men don't target women, okay? But seriously, you think that there aren't anyone targeting men? It's the insanity of that, okay? And it's literally liberal propaganda to create victims. Guess what? To have a victim, you need an oppressor. You need a predator. You need someone who is the victim creator, right? There's no racism without the white man. So literally, that's the situation where you're creating, right? You're creating your oppressor. There's no sexism, right? Without the oppressor, which is a man. So is it conservatives creating their villains? No.
Those enemies, they try to say that, well, it was the enemies in the beginning that caused this particular problem to come about. And I guess the issue that I have is when it comes to woke related stuff, it's hard to find ever like what are the particular DEI policies or affirmative action policies that we're talking about. It's always some vague allusion to airlines don't want to hire white pilots, or they lower their standards for black pilots, or these things that tend to not exist when you actually dig into them. Now, I don't know, maybe it is the.
I mean, literally, I think Google did have a blatant policy. It's like this is the stupidity of this guy. I mean, like, policies. It's like, this is why I say dishonest, because to say that, oh, I don't know if there's any there are policies. There have been policies, right? Google has said they had a policy. There have been reported airlines to have a policy of this. It's like, this is why you're being dishonest.
Case that the Royal Air Force actually had a policy of not hiring straight white
men.
It did, yeah. Okay, I'll look into that. I'm curious about that. I have a feeling when I look into it, it's going to be completely untrue, like most of the stuff that you bring up. But I'll look into it. Maybe it was true. And, if it is, I would say that's not a good thing. That you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. Okay. But I guess the issue I have is when we talk about magnitude. I think you said earlier that sometimes people fixate on these issues a little bit too much, but it's because they're such common sense issues. When I look at the United States right now, and I think how many trans people are there, how many people are doing stuff related to trans people, the number of people is incredibly small. It's like 1%. And the idea that would somehow cause so much of a population to become reactionary that as of 30 minutes ago, I'm pretty sure
they're 1% of the population. Okay, they're 1% of the population. Why do you see them every day or every week? Why are they on almost every form of media? How is the alphabet community such a small population? How is the alphabet community such a small population, but you see more people from the alphabet community than you see Asian people? Please explain to me that. Why are they so small, right? So small. Yet you see more representation from the alphabet community than you see of Indian community. maybe Hispanic community, maybe not. Maybe Hispanic community. Definitely Asian community. Almost every other community, maybe besides white. Why is that? So really, you want to bring up numbers. This is why, like I said, someone like Destiny is disingenuous, because he just thinks about, the individual or political. He doesn't think about the social aspect of it as well.
Iran has tried to bomb like 7 different countries because we have a president who is a madman who is going on a rampage against the entire world insofar as trade. Also in the center like you who say, well, I can obviously identify that this is a problem. Why don't you ever identify any of these super obvious problems on the right, or any of the super obvious problems that are reactionary to the other things that were reactionary, especially when the issues in the United States?
Because we also understand. We understand, right? Here, I've said this countless times before. I disagree with Trump's foreign policy. I don't believe that we should care about what's happening outside our borders. We should care more about what's happening inside our borders. We should be caring about Americans first, right? We should be caring about American lives, American well-being first and most, okay? Before we care about, I don't know, I'm gonna be harsh, but caring about what happens to the people of Venezuela, caring about what happens to the people of Cuba, cares about what happens to the people of I don't know, Israel, Ukraine. We shouldn't give a shit. I'm sorry. We shouldn't care what happens to Ukraine, Israel, Venezuela, Cuba. I don't give a shit. I'm sorry. If you suffer, I'm sorry. This is how it is. I care about America first. I care about Americans first. Right? So I don't love nor care about Trump's foreign policy. But why I'm not extremely critical of it is because I understand it. Right? So Trump wants to secure the Western Hemisphere. So he has control. America has control, power in the Western Hemisphere. Understandable. I understand that it's political power, it's military power. Understandable. So no one messes with us. I can understand that. I don't necessarily agree, because I think no one would mess with us anyway. But I understand that. I understand why we want Greenland, because it's a political power of the North, right? So because the trade routes in there, so we have control of that area. Okay. I understand why we want to control the Middle East, because again, that's oil to, either China or Russia. I can understand that. It's more political power. I can understand it. Okay. I can understand why Trump wants to control, Venezuela, because oil from Venezuela went to China. I can understand that. Oil from in the Middle East goes to China. I can understand that. Right. I mean, like Russia, America, and China are the 3 biggest political powers in the world. So if you have trying to control 2 of your opponents, I can understand it. I can understand why Trump is trying to control his 2 other political opponents. Understandable. I don't agree with it, because I believe America first. I believe American first. This is why I'm not saying all of the right, but this is why me personally, right? I'm not saying I'm the right, but I'm saying more center right, or center, where I could be critical of Trump, but I'm not crazy critical of it, because I understand it. Okay, I can understand why he's doing something. But this is the problem with the left. They don't understand, nor they want to understand it. Okay, even they disagree with it, but they have no understanding of it. Right, and that's the problem I have.
On the right are represented through every single pylon of power that the conservatives have, and on the
This is an article from Sky News. Could you just read out what it says, please?
So I see the AI summary here. Applicants seeking to join RAF bid to hit impossible diversity targets. Just to be clear, just so I can understand.
Thank you.
Is this headline the same as no straight white men were hired? Or they had a policy of not hiring straight white men? Wait, I'm just so curious. Do you understand the difference between somebody not being hired because they're white. Because I'm not going to sit here. You're going to ask me, like, do you think there were ever racist people or even against white people? Of course there are. But you understand there's a difference between the entire Air Force having a policy of not hiring straight white men versus, I guess there was an email where some straight white candidates were skipped over. I don't even know if it was because they didn't meet qualifications or not. They used white men to describe them, but they also called them useless. I don't know if it was because they're white or not. You know there's a difference between those two things, right?
So you don't know this
Do
story?
you know there's a difference between those two things or no?
Yes, I do. Now
Okay,
be
thank you.
quiet.
Okay,
Now-
gotcha. Because I was asking for evidence of mine, but you gave me that. So like I said initially, I had a feeling if I looked this up, it wasn't going to
Are
be
you ever going to
what
let
you
me
presented
talk?
it as. Go
Stop
ahead.
talking.
You seem to have a lot of trouble following what I'm saying.
Stop
but that's
talking.
Okay.
Look, the only way to have a conversation is when people talk in turns.
No, it's not. The only way to have a conversation is when two people are making a good faith effort to understand each other. My question was,
Right.
did the RAF have a policy of not?
Do you have a good faith in trying to understand him? It doesn't seem like you do. When the U.S. controls the flow of all oil, it will become America first. Again, right? This is a thing where, let's say this. I don't disagree, right? Whiskey, I don't disagree that if U.S. control the flow of oil, it is a benefit to America. I don't disagree to that. But it's not a it's not a direct benefit to Americans, right? It's a benefit to America, right, as a whole, as in political power, right? It's a benefit to America as a whole. I don't necessarily see it as a benefit to Americans, okay? I believe that we have more pressing concerns, right? Taxation, overtaxation, our health, how our money is, our wealth, housing, so many other points, right? Education, okay? I think there's so many other things. Now, like I said, I don't disagree. Like I said, how I understand that. I understand the concept behind it.
Hiring
Yes.
straight white men.
Yes.
You showed me an email that said there were
But they
applicants
had
that
that
were rejected
policy.
that were called useless white male pilots or whatever.
They rejected applicants in a bid to hit diversity targets, which means they discriminated against white men in favor of other groups.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that in this particular email, but that doesn't mean that they were not hiring any straight white men.
I didn't
for some...
say they were not hiring any straight white men. I said they were discriminating against them in favor of other people to hit diversity targets, which were described by the people who were charged with recruiting them as impossible to hit. In other words, they were deliberately undermining both the efficacy and the fair treatment of people in their hiring policies because of DEI.
Okay, so this,
you get it now?
The position you have now, yes. And that
Okay,
sounds more
good.
realistic, that there might have been a hiring policy that favored some groups of people that weren't white over the
Right.
white ones
Right.
to cause them to get hired when it might have been in a blind trial, the white people would have been hired otherwise. Yes.
Right.
Do you understand that that's significantly different than you saying the RAF had a policy of not hiring straight white pilots? First of all, I don't know what straight had to do with, are you bi? Do you get like a special application on the...
If you're part of the alphabet community, right? This is why I said destiny is so disingenuous. If you're part of the alphabet community, you will be part of DEI, right? Even if you're a white man, okay? It's like I just find it. This is why I find now I understand the comments why they say this is unbearable, but the problem with it is being unbearable is because of destiny, not because of Konstantin. Right? He's not obviously interrupting people. He's not like word saddling, like just shooting a whole lot of word salad. Okay.
Well, I'm sure you'd want to know the answer to that question, but
I wouldn't because I would never become British. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But...
So I think look, this is why I brought it up, because the idea of a conversation is good faith, but if you question anything that I bring up that you don't know anything about, and then say, well, I don't believe that this happened, and I present you evidence that it did happen, and then you still continue to deny it, I don't see how we can have an actual debate. Now, I never said the RAF hires 0 white pilots. What I said is the policy of discriminating against white men, which has been rife in the rest of society, has created the situation where a lot of people rightly, understandably at least, feel antagonistic about it. That was one of the biggest threats with wokeness, and that is one of the biggest challenges where we are. All your points about Trump and all the rest of it, I don't see how it's relevant, and I think we're going to have a section on Trump coming up. I made the point, I think, about trans, that I think the insanity of some of the things we've been asked to believe, which is like, if you say you're a woman, you automatically become a woman. I think people rightly balk against that because it's ridiculous. Doesn't mean it's the number one issue. I've never said it's the number one issue. In fact, I pointed out it's quite a minor issue in terms of the number of people affected by it. But
I'm just curious, in terms of your shows, of all the social issues you talk about, do you think that the trans stuff is at the top 3?
Well, I don't think we've talked about trans for like a year and a half, maybe 1 or 2 episodes in a year and a half.
Okay, do you feel like for conservatives in general in the United States, do you think that trans is one of the top issues that they talk about? On all the reform stuff that I looked at, trans was listed on a ton of it. It was in the manifesto.
I'm not.
Here's the thing where, yes, it's a small population, but it's like, I showed, this is the problem, right? Where I said this, destiny is disingenuous. where the problem is that it's not that it is heavily affecting population, right? No, the trans shit isn't affecting the population all that much, but it's the ideology, right? Saying a woman, right? Saying a man is a woman is absolutely asinine. Saying a man is a woman is absolutely asinine. Okay, we don't have an unprecedented mass amount of men, right? Believing they're women and going into women's bathroom. Of course we don't, right? That's not like the most pressing concern of America. That's not. But it's like, why can't we all agree on the same thing? Right? That's the problem. We can't all agree on the same basis. Men are men, women are women. Plain and simple. That is it. Right? Then we can move on. Fine. You want to believe, you want to fake yourself a woman? Okay. You think you're a woman? Fine. Whatever. I don't give a shit. You're not a woman, but if you want to believe it, whatever. But the problem is you want me to believe you're a woman. Now there's a problem, right? We should all be able to agree on the same thing. Man or men, women or women. If you're a man, you cannot be a woman. You can be a man faking to be a woman, right? That's always been a thing, okay? But to think that you're a woman, well, that is absolutely asinine. We can't even agree on that. And that's the problem. That's the social problem, okay? That's the social problem. Yeah, it's a small vocal population. I agree. But again, I said this before, right? I just said this before. The problem is that we don't understand the social power. The social power that the alphabet community has. I said this before. There's more representation of the alphabet community than a lot of minority communities, right? Even though they're a small population of the West, of the US, yet you see more people of the alphabet community than you see Asian people, right? In social media, in all forms of media, right? TV, movies, fucking radio, if you hear it, I don't know. Commercial, anything, right? Anything like comic books, magazines, you name it, right? Any form of media. You see more representation by alphabet community, right? The LGBT, blah, 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 whatever community, than you do Asian people. Then I think you do maybe Indian people, maybe whatever, Middle East, than any other community, right? Maybe besides white, or maybe besides black people. Yet they're a small population of people. Why are we seeing such a huge influx of these mentally unstable people? Why? So you can see that their social power is huge, right? This community has a huge social power, right? They may not have, I think they have a bit, I think they have, hell, the alphabet community has more political power than the Asian community, right? And so really, it's got to say something.
I'm not a Republican conservative in America, so I don't know what they talk about. It's up to them.
Well, who would you voted for in the last American election?
Who would I have voted for? Donald Trump, for sure.
Okay, so I don't know. Okay.
Doesn't mean that you're a conservative Republican.
Of course it does. Definitionally so. You're voting for the conservative Republican candidate.
So if you present me with a small pile of shit and a big pile of shit, and I picked a small pile of shit, you go, oh, you love shit. No.
If the vote is between a guy who resembles the furthest right you can be insofar as how they conceptualize the government
and a guy who has no brain, yeah, I'll go with the guy with a brain.
So
yeah.
Kamala Harris, the person who was a DA in California, who was Attorney General in California, who served as Vice President, who was a Senator in California, versus Donald Trump, who brags about taking and passing 3 cognitive tests in a month.
Yeah.
The dumb person is Kamala Harris there.
Look, I just explained to you that when you make choices between things, it's not because you necessarily love the choice you're making. If you're forced to choose between two things, you choose the one that is the lesser evil, effectively.
Sure, I'm just...
This is why I love Konstantin. I believe 100% of that. I don't love Trump, but out of the two choices we had, I would pick Trump. Trump is the better choice out of the two crappy-ass choices we had. Trump is 1,000 times better than Kamala. And saying that she's whatever she was, right? There's a bit of there's some talk that she sucked her way right to the top. So really, he's like, and her as a vice president. So what? Trump was the president, right? Plus, vice president. What did she do? Like you named her positions. You named none of her accomplishments.
curious.
I agree with a lot of Donald Trump's foreign policy.
Sure, of course you do. I know you do, because you have a conservative view on foreign policy. Over the past 5 years,
choice between two things.
well, not in the UK, you can vote between a lot of things. We have two parties in the
Yes,
US, but
but
that's okay. I can always educate you on your political system. It's fine. But so my question is, of all these things that you have to choose,
See, you see that? You see the jackassery, right? You see that? You see the jabs, why literally, right? A tactic of the left is trying to get you to be emotional, right? Because they know that they're emotional people. The left is an emotional group. But if they can get you emotional, it will slip you up, right? It's a obvious tactic from the left.
At what case in the last 5 years have you,
Liberal Democrat at the last election, and it's likely that I will again at the next one. I just told you this.
what about in terms of supporting major issues? How many lib-left candidates, I guess, do you guys have on your show, or do you talk to or support?
As many as will come on.
Does that mean zero? Or
No.
how many? Okay, because I know, I know Farage has been on a ton. I know you've done a lot of content with Goodwin.
Okay, they're not far left, right? But we've
correct.
also
They're right, yeah.
We've also
That's my
had
point,
the
yeah.
co-founder of Extinction Rebellion, who's currently in prison for blocking roads, on the show. We've had Aaron Bastani, who's the co-founder of Novara Media, a far-left news organization in this country. We've had a bunch of. I mean, I could go down the list for ages if you want, if that's what you like.
I've seen the top 10 lists of the people that you've invited the most on are all generally
We had comedian Mark Steele, who's a lefty.
The top 10, it's okay, so you care about who views his show, but you don't care about the people he let on.
We had Deborah Francis White from the
Sure.
Guilty
So I'm
Feminist
guessing when you say
podcast.
lefty for these people, they're populist lefties that think that the whole institution is rotted and they
No,
don't support
no,
actively.
no,
So,
not
so
at
the guy
all.
you just described, is he a Labour voter? Would he support Labour? Has he supported Labour?
Which guy? Mark
The
Steele.
one-
He's
yeah.
a lifelong Labour voter,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
well then you get credit for that one, I guess. Okay, I haven't seen every episode of Trigonometry. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, maybe you should stop opining about who we have on then if you haven't seen every episode of Trigonometry.
I don't think I should have to watch every single episode of Trigonometry to have a
You
rough idea.
you
of-
should know who we have on the show regularly before you make a judgment.
I have a
on it,
decent
yeah.
idea.
No, you don't. You've just demonstrated
I
that you
haven't
don't.
seen. I haven't seen you. I demonstrate. I don't know every single person that goes on.
Right.
You haven't made
Would
a
you like
Twitter
me to give
video
you more
saying,
lefties?
"Okay, well, call me left wing now." You did make one saying, "Well, fine, I'll be right wing now."
So
there's
you-
clearly you lean in a certain direction.
Right wing.
Why does everybody, on my side at least, everybody perceives you as being right wing?
Because it's convenient for you, as you've demonstrated in the course of this conversation.
In what way?
I'm about to explain if you just
Okay.
stop talking.
I hope you actually.
So it's convenient to you in exactly the way that you've demonstrated throughout this conversation, where when I make a good point about anything, you say, you conservatives, and then you pivot to talking about Republicans in America, because it suits you, because then you can argue against things you came here prepared to argue against, instead of arguing with what I'm actually saying.
What is the
That's
point you
why.
feel like I haven't? First of all, I'm pretty sure the debate topics were a question that you feel like you've said that I accused you of being a conservative and then I pivoted and I didn't respond to your point.
Every single thing we've discussed.
Name one of them then.
Every single thing we've
So
discussed.
you can't think of a single one. What did I not respond to for immigration? You didn't bring up a point. You said a bunch of descriptions. You're like, well, this is true. And then that
If you just
okay,
stop
one
interrupting.
point that I didn't respond to.
When I say something, you don't talk after that. Can you do
Ever?
that now?
Okay.
Every single thing that we've discussed, immigration, national identity.
Just one thing. You're not having a conversation. I guess I didn't expect you to. You realize you don't have
If
an
you want
answer
to
for
have this
that.
conversation by yourself, you're welcome to. But
I feel like I am.
you are, yeah.
I know
You
I
are.
am. Yes,
You
I
are.
know I am. I feel that way. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to the
'Cause
copy-pasted
you're-
talking points,
you're
and I
not-
can't get an actual answer out of you for anything. You guys do it all the time. You made the claim that I'm avoiding answering any of your arguments because I'm calling you a conservative. I think you are a conservative and I labels you as such, but I'm not dodging your arguments. It's not. But then don't continue to filibuster and make the claim. Just say, okay, well, I guess maybe that was, you pivoted and you didn't.
Opinions you don't like, I'm a Russian agent.
Why are we debating the crowd right now? I'm still here.
Is that what
Can
you're
you
saying?
not
I
have
just
a? Can you
can't-
really not answer?
From the audience, let's not get into that. Let's try to let the dialectic get back on track here.
Simple question. What do you feel like I haven't addressed? Okay, let's say that you've tried to enact has
Every
failed.
time you say you guys, you've already lost the argument because you're not arguing with me.
Okay, well, I asked you for a clear stance, but you literally said, "Well, I don't know. I couldn't do that."
It's immigration. Immigration,
No,
not
that's-
Brexit. Immigration.
Sure. Well, Brexit was a part of the immigration argument, right?
Not for me.
For the majority of the. Oh my God. I'm sorry. It's okay. What question do you even pose to me with regards to immigration that you feel like I didn't answer? I don't think you even posed a question to me.
What you failed to do, we started this bit of the just listen, okay? Just put the
I'm
microphone
listening
down
right
and
now.
listen.
I'm listening.
You keep interrupting me. I'm not interested in
I'm
this.
not interrupting
Whatever
you.
this is. You are.
I'm literally not. I'm asking you a question. You just refuse to answer. This is the game. How did I do it again? I'm asking you a clear question. You can't give me an answer.
I'm not going to talk to you unless you listen to what I'm saying as well as me listening to what you're saying.
I am listening.
Okay, good. So we started this bit of the conversation, right? Talking about the exchange that we just had. That's what we were talking about, right? And you made your points, and I tried to make my points, and you keep interrupting and talking over me, right? I've addressed immigration, and I've addressed every single other thing that you brought up. And the moment I do, what you do is you say, well, you conservatives say this, you conservatives say that, in order that you can then argue with things that I haven't said. And that is exactly what you've done throughout this whole thing. So when you ask me, why do people say that you're a conservative? It's because it's much more convenient for them than addressing the arguments that I'm actually making. And you've demonstrated that throughout this entire discussion. That answers your question.
Okay, what is the argument that you're making with specificity to immigration? What does Konstantin's ideal immigration policy for Great Britain look like? And who in the past have you supported their vision for immigration to the United Kingdom?
Sorry, because I jumped in, which I shouldn't have done.
Second part. Okay.
Second part.
Yeah. No, who have you supported historically over the past 10 years? Whose idea for immigration, I guess, have you supported policy-wise, politician-wise? Who would you support right now? What is your ideal vision for immigration to the United Kingdom?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So my ideal vision for immigration in this country would be something like probably 40 to 50,000 people a year, highly selective, which means that you really have to qualify in terms of your skill set, ticking all sorts of other cultural compatibility, age, and so all sorts of other things that basically mean you're likely to be a very positive net contribution to the country. You're probably going to have the ability to earn and pay more tax than you receive in benefits over your lifetime. You're unlikely to commit crime. You're unlikely to become a terrorist. You're unlikely to do things that we wouldn't want you to do. You would be highly selective. I think I would definitely prioritize immigration from people, from countries, not from countries really, but from people who already speak the language, who maybe have a cultural familiarity. So Hong Kongers are a good example of this, right? These are people who are formerly part of the British Empire, speak the language. They're able to come over, integrate very easily, and make a good contribution. So something like 40 to 50,000 people a year. But again, you know, it's a democratic thing. So if the British people vote to have zero immigration, that's their right. If the British people want to have 300,000 people come a year, that's their right. The part of the problem we've had with immigration in this country.
Wait, can I ask just
No, just let me just finish this bit, and then you can ask whatever you want. A part of the problem we've had with immigration in the last 30 years is, despite the fact that people keep voting against mass immigration of the kind that we've had, they keep voting for parties that promise to reduce it in 2010, in 2015, in 2016, in 2017, in 2019, and in 2024. In all of those elections, immigration was a major issue, and the British people overwhelmingly voted against what we have today. Despite that fact, we've actually had the opposite of what they voted for. So I want managed, highly selective, low numbers, high compatibility, and I want it to be in line with the democratic wishes of the British people.
Okay, so then a statement and then a question. So I would argue that the reason why people have voted for lower immigration and they haven't gotten the lower immigration is because I don't think people tend to vote for higher or lower immigration. I think that people vote for where they feel problems are. And I feel like people sometimes scapegoat immigrants as a class of people for why these problems experience, or if to these issues, the immigrants become this catch-all scapegoat, which I'm not even saying, and again, why there's such this pressure for the government, the majority government, to have more immigrants come in is because they know that as much as people might feel a certain type of way about certain types of immigrants, that the collapse of the NHS or the collapse of the education system.
This is the thing. That's why Destiny just does a whole lot of word salad. Okay, Konstantin is more precise, while Destiny just really go, because this is the thing. Doesn't matter what the British people think, you know, whatever, right? Oh, it's like this, you know, immigration is not actually the problem. Something else is the problem, but it doesn't matter, right? When majority of the British people think that, okay, immigration is a problem, we don't want it, and then we vote people, or they vote people to implement it, and then you don't do it, right? You're just exacerbating the problems that they already believe. And here's the thing, even if you don't do it, right? So say, for instance, you still let more, you know, immigrants in. Okay. But is our society getting better? Is it getting better? It's not. So really, you were voted in to do something. You didn't do it, right? You did the opposite of it, but it still didn't get better, right? Even if you didn't listen to the people. This is the problem with what I have with a lot of politicians. You choose to do what you did. You failed at it, right? You didn't make things better. You didn't listen to the people. You didn't make things better. And now you said, you know what, maybe there's other problems. What other problems then? What other, and this is the thing where it is the position, it is the responsibilities of our politicians. Fine. If you think you're smarter than the people, okay? If you think you know better than the people, well then do it, show it. That's it, right? Show it. And throughout these years, I'm sorry, I've looked at UK from the outside, you know, from the outside, they're not doing better, right? They're doing worse. It looks like it. Now, maybe if you live there and you're saying that, oh yeah, UK is the best ever. Okay, maybe you know better than me. But from the outside looking in, looks like you're a shithole, and you're increasing, you're continuing to become a bigger shithole. Plain and simple.
Or the collapse of the local economy is going to, and I'm pushing with a degree of specificity because you speak about these issues a lot. When you say selecting for certain values like what is it? What would that test even look like when you say selecting for certain values? What are the values that you're selecting for the economy? Let's assume that you met the threshold for all of these things. Why cap it at 30 or 40,000 if they can integrate perfectly, if they speak the language of
Why cap it is again, it's because you can let so your nation can integrate them in, right? Can absorb them. It's hard. I said this right. There was, I forget which Nordic country, right? But it was a Nordic country that they felt there was such a huge influx of people, millions of people, right? Or I think 500,000 people, or whatever amount. But it was such a huge influx of people, their system couldn't handle it, right? The infrastructure couldn't handle the amount for the hospitals, schools, I don't know, welfare programs, whatever, right? Jobs, okay? Housing. That's why you cap it, right? So we can, this is a thing where maybe one of the reasons why we have a housing shortage, housing problem, because we let hypothetically 10 million people in, when honestly we had like enough for 1 million people, right? That's why there's a housing shortage, when we have already like 1 million Americans don't have a house, but then we let 10 million immigrants in, but we only have like, I don't know, 1 million houses, right? So we have to split 1 million houses to 11 million people. So that is why there's a cap. So we can slowly integrate the amount of people we let in with the amount of people we already have that needs whatever infrastructure, needs whatever things.
Why not have like 100 or 200 or 300,000 of these people?
Is at the moment that's what the British people would want. For me, it's the numbers are. Joseph Stalin said quantity has a quality all of its own, and I think there's a truth to that, which is once you have very large numbers of people coming over a short period of time, it is disruptive for the reasons we've already discussed, and it also can put pressure on infrastructure. The reason, by the way, we haven't had the policy on mass immigration that the British people voted for isn't that. I mean, I agree with you. Of course, there are some people who scapegoat immigrants.
Jeremiah, what is up, my brother? What is up? Somehow this is the only market they claim doesn't follow supply and demand. I agree. That's the thing, right? We have too much demand, not enough supply. But you're surprised that we have such a huge influx. That is why we need to control certain things like, the immigration problem. Oh, I'm sorry, the labor and the housing market.
To explain the problems that society has. And I don't agree with scapegoating immigrants. That doesn't mean mass immigration is necessarily good. One of the problems with mass immigration is it's effectively been used in Europe to cover up the fact that our economies are not growing. Our economies are shrinking on a per capita basis. We are poorer per capita in this country today than we were before the financial crisis. And the reason we haven't had the policy of controlled immigration that people keep voting for is that bringing in more bodies is the only way politicians can pretend our economy is still growing. That's actually the main reason that this has been happening.
Okay, so I guess my question is, what are the values, or what are the things that you would select for when you talk about like a values-based tax? Immigrants is to shore up an economy. I think a lot of that has to do with the boomer generation as well. That we had a lot.
He asks a question and like he adds so much, I don't know, word salad or context or whatever to it.
People come back from wars or stay for wars, so you're kind of this weird
net consumers of tax revenue. Then you're not solving that problem. You're making it worse. Right? And that's what's been happening in the UK. So when you have mass unskilled or very low-skilled immigration and plus lots of dependents, you're actually bringing in people who are then going on benefits in this country, which I have no idea why it is in this country that we allow foreign citizens to receive benefits. It doesn't make any sense to me. But what happens...
I love it, Jeremiah, right? Thank you for that's still supportive, right? Even if you guys just stop by to say hi, I love it, right? Thank you, my brother. I love you, right?
Happens is you then effectively are bringing net consumers of tax revenues, and you're making that problem worse, which is why I say it isn't that. It's the fact that politicians are able to pretend that we are growing. I mean, the British economy is growing by like 1.1% or whatever it is. It's still not even growing even on that basis. But the reason they bring in lots and lots of people is so that they can add to the total tax base without having consideration of what happens when you divide that by the number of people, which is you're getting poorer.
Okay, so then let's say that everything you just say is true, and I would agree that bringing in people to consume welfare, and I can't speak to the exact immigration schema that you have in the United Kingdom, but let's assume that that is happening, then why not speak to changing those policies? Rather than attacking the concept of like, well, 200,000 people came in and they're all leeching from the welfare, why not just say that, if people want to try to immigrate, we'll do this. However, we're going to forbid people from qualifying for this much welfare. In the United States, you have to make a certain amount of money to qualify for visas or, long permanent resident cards, green cards, or whatever. Why don't I ever hear a conversation about that, changing the incentives?
Well, that's exactly what I advocate for all the time. That's literally what I say every time I talk about immigration.
Okay, that's good, but because I feel like I just heard you talk a lot about it. It was just reducing the number, high skilled only, reducing the number, but having like a cap on.
The thing you just described is literally what I advocate for on a daily basis.
Okay, I hear you talk a lot about the other stuff, but maybe I've just happened to miss those things.
The thing that what I believe about immigration, one of the problems is because, for the reasons we've already discussed, when you've had this open border policy combined with, the mantra diversity is our greatest strength, you build up a lot of resentment with other people against immigrants. The reason you see people now on the internet talking about, Britain's been colonized and Britain's been invaded. I don't like that language. I understand why people use it, but I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it is I don't blame people for wanting to come to Britain. Britain's great. Of course they'd want to come here. I believe that what we need to do is change policy so that the British government is doing things that are in the interest of the British people. And it's not in the interest of the British people for us to be spending £14 million a day on illegal immigrants. It's not in the interest of British people to be housing, clothing, and feeding people who've come here from other countries who are not British citizens and who are not paying tax here. We shouldn't have foreign nationals in social housing. We should not be providing benefits to foreign nationals. And I say this as someone who was very poor and a foreign national for quite a significant portion of my life in this country. So I advocate for sensible policies on immigration, on what happens when you get here. That is my position, which is why, with all respect, I'm glad a normal conversation has broken out between us, despite the conversation we were having earlier, because this is the reason I don't subscribe to political parties and this sort of team-based agenda, because every political party has lots of things about its policies that I don't like. I don't like lots of things about left and right political parties. I like to advocate for the things that I believe are positive for this country. I think a positive, carefully selected immigration policy and then putting the interests of British people who are already here, who are nationals of this country first, is exactly what we should be doing. So
Sure.
I'm glad we agree on that.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily disagree with anything you've said, but one of the issues with the statement of I don't subscribe to a certain political party, I think that you can have a constellation of ideas that don't map cleanly onto some side, but when it comes down to elections or when it comes down to pushing people to vote in an election, you kind of have to choose a party or you have to choose a person. Things have to collapse into one choice.
Sure.
And I guess, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but the feeling that I get from you, from the things that I've heard you say, is that if I were to look at the past 20 years of British politics, and if immigration was a huge issue that I had with this country, I feel like the Conservatives have failed monumentally in dealing with the immigration issue.
Of course.
I feel like
just like Labour before them. Yeah.
Sure, but I feel like the prediction was that Labour was going to continue to fail massively on it, and it seems like Labour hasn't failed. It seems like Starmer, for all of his faults, I know you guys all hate him, but it seems like his government has done a good job at cutting heavily into the amount of immigrants coming over, cutting heavily through the backlog of asylum seekers that you had that the Tories refused to deal with. But now, on the eve of all these Tories beginning to look like they're going to flip to reform, I feel like all of the people who are opposed to the mass migration or mass immigration narrative are going to try to support reform when all of these people have seemed to fail to deliver on these reduction of immigration promises over and over and over again, and that's just very confusing to me. I don't understand that.
Yeah, well, let me explain it to you. I mean, it's a fair critique. So, first of all, the Labour, your point about, Labour Party is reduce the numbers, it's not quite how it works, but yeah, the numbers are lower. They're still very high. I mean, this is why I kept bringing up the point about what was happening in this country 30 years ago when I first came here. The numbers of people coming then were about 40 to 50,000 a year, 55,000, I think, in 1996. It's still like 300-something thousand now, which is way too high, particularly given the cumulative impact of mass immigration that we've had. So both Labour and not both Labour, the Labour, the Lib Dems, and the Conservatives have all failed on this. All the mainstream politicians have failed on this for the reasons that I gave you.
Sure,
and let me address the point about reform.
Like
let me
the Labour or the Conservative Party, the Tories failed far, far, far more.
No, it started with the Blair government. So more people came under the Blair government. Let me just lay
I
this
understand.
out.
We're going Boris wave after. It seems like the Tories failed hardcore.
They
with
both
immigration
failed
stuff.
in exactly the same way.
Okay, so you would say as of right now, if you could flip a coin and have the Tories continue, okay, versus the Labour government, that they would both perform the same on immigration?
I think it probably very likely similar. Yeah, absolutely.
How would we feel that way? What's the evidence of that?
Sorry?
Why would we feel that way? What would we look to in reality that would inform that?
I think the numbers were going to come down, whoever was in charge. I don't think the numbers this year have come down because the Labour government has come in. I think they were likely to come down anyway. My point is something else. Immigration under both governments is way too high, particularly given its cumulative impact over time. But your point about, a few Tories defecting to reform, it's not all these Tories. It's like 3 or 4 people in power to reform. I voted most for in my life are the Liberal Democrats. Second most would be Labour. I think I might have voted. Yeah, I think I voted Conservative once, and yeah, I've never voted Reform. So,
okay, I guess when I look at, so here's a question. I guess when it comes to the immigration thing, let's say that for the next.
For me, when it comes to voting, right, I express my my right to not vote, right, because I've always believed this, right. I've always believed this, that our government is just voting for the lesser of two evils, right. I mean, like, The Republican side, not great. Democrat side, definitely not great. Plus, at the end of the day, the presidents will do what the presidents would do. I don't believe that they will listen to you, right? I don't believe that they care about you all that well, all that much. I believe you. I mean, although I don't really even vote for the cities, right? I believe you have more political leeway, or more impactful for your when you vote for your cities or your states. Okay. But still, I don't really vote because I don't trust the government either way. I don't care if it's a Republican government or a Democrat government. Okay, because here's the thing where, you know, even though we have a Republican controlled government, I'm still paying high in taxes, right? Because probably because I live in a blue state. But that's the thing where that's why I have that kind of mindset. Okay, where okay, well, we have a Republican-led government, yet I'm still paying high in taxes. So it's at the end of the day, you know what? I feel like life is, you gotta roll with the punches in a way. Okay, what happens happens. You just gotta roll with the punches. So that's how I see life. Because let's say this, right? Even if hypothetically I could vote for every election, I vote for who I wanted. It don't mean that it's going to make my life better, or it's going to be that this president or whoever would really benefit me, or make my life better. Usually they don't. Usually whatever president there, they you don't have much of a voice when you don't have money, when you don't have power. That's how I see it. So I just don't bother voting. I mean, it might be frowned upon politically, but look, whatever. Right.
5 years, we could float this idea of, say, severe, but somewhat of a degradation or continued degradation of the services that the NHS provides, and then an increase in the cost of education, that the costs are going to continue to go up, but we can cut the amount of immigrants coming in as a result of that. Do you think that's a trade? Is it a trade that you would support? And do you think it's a trade that most British people would support?
I definitely think it's a trade that most British people would support, but I also don't think that that is actually what would happen. I mean, first of all, given the decline in birth rates that we are now seeing, schools are shutting anyway, so you don't need foreign teachers to teach British children. That's not really happening. In terms
like
of
foreign students for money, right?
Hold on, but you mean for universities?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, foreign students are coming in and paying fees and then going back to their country. I think it's totally fine. I've got no problem with that. We're exporting a British service. No issue with that at all. But in terms of the NHS, I do think it would have a short-term impact on the NHS, but we have to train British people to do those jobs, inevitably so. And that short-term impact will be disruptive, but it will be worth it. But my broader point to you about mass immigration beyond specific shortages in specific industries, which, by the way, are exaggerated. You've got to remember, right, in what is effectively a market economy, when you have a shortage of labor, what that does is it increases the wages that people are willing to offer people to do those jobs, and that then creates more people who come in and do those jobs. So
but it also increases the cost of those services,
yeah,
right?
of course, but because British people are being paid properly to do those jobs, to me that's a trade-off that's perfectly worth it.
The cost will ultimately rise more than there will be a concentrated industry that might be paid a little bit better, but the cost overall of the things like the NHS
wages for
increase.
British people will go up, which will help them to be able to afford other things that they want, right? I am perfectly happy for British NHS staff and doctors to be paid better. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, I think the question would be, is it worth the trade-off of a degradation of NHS services, which is what would happen.
I don't know that it would lead to long-term. I think short-term, of course, it would be disruptive. I don't think long-term it would lead to a degradation of NHS services at all. You would have a highly paid workforce of British people who are trained in this country to be doctors and nurses. I think that would be incredible, and that's what we should be aiming for. But the broader point I'm making to you is take the NHS and other shortages that you might create in this way out of it. The bulk of the people who've come over the last 30 years are not supporting themselves financially to the point where it's worth our time bringing them in, and that's the problem.
Even the bulk of the legal immigrants, you don't think are worth it financially or economically?
The bulk of the wave of low-skilled and no-skilled immigration and dependence that we have had is not economically beneficial to us. We should be welcoming people in who are economically beneficial, and as part of the wave that we've had over the last 30 years, some of those people have been economically beneficial. Great, let's bring those people in, but let's not bring in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are net takers of tax revenue and also are more likely to be doing other things that we don't want.
So let's do.
When I was living in the UK, right, I had my girlfriend was telling me stories of and I saw it around there too, right? My girlfriend at the time was telling me there's so many people who don't even go to job, don't even work, right? They're taking benefits, welfare, whatever benefits that the UK has, okay? They don't even have jobs, okay? They're outside every day, just standing on corners, whatever. and these are immigrants, right? These are immigrants. They, some of them are just doing crime as well. Okay, so I mean, in an anecdotal experiences, yeah, these people are low to no skills, and they're not adding to the economy, right? They're not necessarily adding to the economy. I mean, they buy this, buy that, but I mean, they're not really adding to the economy. They're not doing the jobs or any jobs really, or improving anything. So yeah, they are just really a net negative. Right? They're just straining the system when already the system is already strained.
Final
Well,
thoughts.
just a quick really fill jobs that they feel the economy is going
Well,
to be
we
lacking.
talked about it earlier, didn't we?
Well, yeah, but when
It's
I
to
check
pretend the economy is growing when it's not. That's the incentive.
but if they're net takers of everything, wouldn't this would increase your debt and your deficits?
No,
It would
what
hurt your-
happens? Well, no, what happens? The way to think about it is like this. Let's say that you're a family, you've got a wife, 2 kids, right? And you have a total household income of £100,000. Okay, and your wife says we need to grow our household income. Let's bring my parents in. Let's bring the in-laws in. They earn 20,000 a year collectively together. So you bring in now your household income is 120,000, except you now have to divide it among 6 people instead of 4 people. That's what they've done. They are the wife that says, let's bring the in-laws in so we can pretend our household income
So
income's
I
growing.
understand the analogy, but I feel like it would be more you have a household of 4 people, and then there's also some kind of work that needs to be done. Maybe you need grandma to knit, and you need grandpa to mow the grass or something. And if you can't afford to do it, you have to hire out somebody else to do it.
Yeah,
And
but you
that-
can't pretend you're getting richer. You're getting poorer because you now have to feed 2 more people.
Yeah, but if you didn't bring those people in, the cost for everything would be so much higher that at the end of the day...
It wouldn't. It wouldn't.
Okay. This is a mean question, but just to push, because it's
just
frustrating because, well, bolsters every part of your economy, with some exceptions, especially in Europe and the UK, where you have weird rules around like asylum seekers not being allowed. All of our native people can just work these jobs and it'll be fine. Like, I hear this rhetoric from so many people all over the world, and this has never worked anywhere ever.
Well,
Because this is the thing where it never works anywhere, because we have created a society of fucking lazy ass people. This is the thing where we say, oh, you know what? No one would want to, mow your lawn. No one want to, pick your fucking cotton, right? Pick your fruits or shit. Yeah, but here's the thing. We have also the same people who no one wants to do it, same people who are not even working, right? So we have people who don't have jobs that don't want to do said jobs. Well, that's the insanity of it, right? That's the insanity of it. So what we do is that we don't, because we don't try to, take away the enabling. Okay, the people who don't have jobs, they can literally apply for benefits, right? They can apply for benefits. They can apply for welfare. Any of these things. When honestly, I've said this before, our tax money shouldn't be going for a lot of these welfare programs. Unless you're old and disabled, right? Old and disabled, you shouldn't be qualifying for these benefits. I don't give a shit if you're a single man or you're a single baby mama. You should not be able to qualify for these benefits, right? I believe our benefits should be going to family units, right? Husband, wife, and children, tax exempts, whatever, right? Benefits for them. Benefits, a welfare benefit for the disabled, right? Truly disabled. Just saying that, you are mentally disabled. No, right? To be honest, it's like, no. I mean, like, the neurodivergents, the whatever, the disabled, the obese. I'm sorry, right? Our tax money shouldn't be paying for the obese. Fuck it, right? If you're obese, you don't deserve shit, right? You don't deserve anything from the government. I'm sorry. You made yourself obese, and you think taxpayer money should go to you because you disabled yourself? No, hell with that. And it should go to like old people, right? The ones that have contribute to society, right? Are elderly, right? They've sacrificed for our society. They worked in our society, so benefits should go to the old, truly disabled, right? The truly disabled, the truly disabled, and I think benefits should go to families because we should be promoting families. So,
if bringing in 8 million people as we've done boosts your economic growth, and why aren't we growing?
well, I think Brexit hurt quite a bit. Number one, I think
we're doing better than other European countries, which, by the way, have also done mass immigration. The reason our economies are growing...
I'm pointing it out, your goal wouldn't be to other European countries. Your goal would be compared to where the United Kingdom could be otherwise. And I know that for all of your issues with EU immigrants from Eastern Europe or whatever, you basically replaced all of those now with a high amount of just Indian and Pakistani immigrants, which earlier seemed like the ones you had the biggest problems with. So it seems like in terms of immigration or getting the types of labor that you would want to this country, that was pretty significantly impacted.
Brexit didn't do on immigration what people wanted it to do.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I didn't vote for it, just to remember.
Sure.
Is Trump's approach to political issues dictatorial or reflective of democratic consensus?
Yeah, I think, almost definitionally, Donald Trump views himself as a guy who should be able to operate the entire executive branch just through the White House. There's a number of examples of this. I mean, we can run through any of these. I'm not entirely sure what your position would be on this. I'd be surprised if it was anything different, but yeah, you can tell me, or I can define more things or whatever if you.
Whiskey, thank you for all the love. Thank you for the love. I'm doing my taxes. Not hard, but hate doing it. This is a thing where I just had to pay shitload of money in taxes, and I hate it. Right? I'm gonna go on a tax rant. Right? I did it in my last live, the beginning of my last live, and I talked about it as like I absolutely hate it. Right? I hate this. This is why, you know what? If this is a thing where if Donald Trump could have actually affect taxes of all across the board, right? I would love it. Right? I think federal tax in the Philadelphia area was like 22%. 22% of federal taxes. I'm like, I fucking hate. I hate. I hate the shit. I hate this thing, right? I'm so pissed of how they're overtaxing us. I like I said, cut these welfare programs. I'm sorry. There are jobs you could do, right? There are jobs you could do. Single mothers shouldn't be on welfare. I'm sorry. They shouldn't get benefits. Being poor shouldn't be getting benefit. Work. Get a job. All right? Live together, right? Like, have a household of like 5, whatever, how many people. Live together, work, right? You shouldn't be receiving benefit because you're fucking poor. I'm sorry. No, you shouldn't. I said it. The benefits should be going for the disabled, the elderly, and families, right? Because, and the nuclear family, right? Husband, wife, children. That should be going, benefits should be going to those. Because one, we should be taking care of the weak, right? And I don't view the poor as weak. I view the poor as, just useless, right? And should be going to promotion of families, right? Promoting of families. That's where the benefits should be going to. Or, our veterans, right? I mean, like certain things. If I thought more, I could probably expand it. But yes, that's where our benefits should be going, right? Veterans, the elderly, the disabled, families. If you're a single mother, my tax money shouldn't be going to you. I'm sorry. It's no one's fault but your own that you're a single mother, right? Just work for it. Pick yourself out of the bootstraps. If you're poor, work that job, right? There are plenty of jobs that immigrants shouldn't be doing, illegal immigrants or immigrants shouldn't be doing. You should be doing. That's how I view it. I cut these programs that, like, seriously. I'm so pissed that I had to pay so much in tax. Extremely pissed. And this is how you keep people poor, right? Or you have a barrier, right? You have a barrier for the poor or the middle class, okay? Because it's hard when you're trying to make more. You're trying to make more and more money. You hit that barrier of tax. It puts you down, right? It kicks you back down. It doesn't help. It doesn't help you, right? It kicks you back down when you have that tax barrier. Okay, huge tax barrier too.
That would make you comfortable first, I guess.
Well, yeah, maybe you can define dictatorial for us, actually.
Sure. So when I think of dictator, I think of single man type rule where there's a single person who feels like they have more legitimacy. Well, I would say than the other branches of government, but he would be the government essentially. So I would say examples of this are the way that Donald Trump treats his Supreme Court. I would say that the way that he's...
Stephen, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just define, I just couldn't quite hear it. So
Sure.
it's a single person who feels he has more legitimacy?
More can enact power through his will alone, basically.
His will alone?
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to follow the law?
He feels like he's above the law.
He's
Yeah.
above the law. He feels or he's acting like, somebody in the audience might feel like they're above the law, but it doesn't make them a dictator, right?
No, but it would make them dictatorial.
If someone in the audience thinks they're above the law, that would mean they're dictatorial.
Yeah, it would be a dictatorial personality. They might not be a dictator because they don't have the power to be a dictator.
Okay. And if someone is, say, the president, and they can be voted out, and they will be voted out, would they still be considered dictatorial?
Yeah, they could be dictatorial. Yeah, of course.
Even if they can...
So it's just a feeling. If you feel like it, right? If you feel it. He's not talking about dictator. So his definition on dictatorial is that you feel you have all this power. Okay.
Be voted out.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
'Cause to me, a dictator is someone who just basically retains power, including by force. If you can be voted out, how can you be a dictator?
Well, I mean, you have some people who will change their voting systems in order to be elected over and over
Like
again.
Vladimir Putin, fair.
Sure.
So
Or
Putin
Evo
is a
Morales.
dictator.
Or,
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
But if you can be voted out in a free and fair election, then can you still be a dictator?
You could. I mean, you could nominate the next person in line to be the next king or president. I think that Donald Trump, like,
That's why I said free and fair election, right?
sure, which I mean, they're also trying to actively impede right now. But do you think that if Donald Trump was 20 years younger, he keeps making these references to running for a third term? Do you think he would try to run for a third term?
Yeah, I think the fact that he keeps referencing a third term is a disaster, and I think he should definitely stop doing that.
Yeah, I think it's dictatorial.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I say he's a pretty dictatorial guy. Yeah.
I think, I think that, see, here's the issue with that, right? Is Trump talks a lot of shit and he likes to piss people off. And so he says these things and you kind of go, well, it's 99.999% that he's trolling.
Wait, is it though?
Hold on. Just let me lay out my argument. We've established that we're actually able to have a conversation, so let's
Okay.
have one. So 99.999%, this is my assessment anyway, he's trolling. 0.0001%, shit, he's talking about a third term. Not good. And I regard, particularly given what happened on January the 6th, the fact that he keeps referencing a third term as a problem, and as something that indicates that the risk of him trying to do whatever it is he might do when that happens is non-zero, which to me would be absolutely dictatorial. However, I do lean on the idea that it's probably just trolling. In terms of everything else he's doing domestically, what I see is the American...
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree. Like, Donald Trump says a lot of shit, right? I mean, this is why I didn't care for him his first term. He says a lot of shit, right? He just constantly says a lot of stuff. And I definitely think that the things he says doesn't benefit him all that well with certain things, like saying, he wants to do a third term, or, when with January 6th, he said that, it's, fraud and shit like that. I mean, like, to be honest, you could say it, get a recount. I mean, you could do a recount, but I don't know, certain things are like, you don't necessarily have to say it because it could paint you in a bad image, which I think he's done that a few times. But yes, I believe he is trolling a lot of times, because I believe he cannot do it because he can't change. I believe that's a law. You can't change that. You can't change it for presidents can now do multiple beyond 2 terms, right? I don't think you could change that. And here's the thing: where if you pick your successor, okay, so what? It means nothing. It's just like who you support. You can't literally pick your successor, right? You can't literally, because again, even let's say hypothetically, he said, "Oh, I want JD Vance to be president." Okay, great. So what, right? It's the votes. It's voting, right? You don't say it and it happens. So it's not necessarily meaningful, right? Like, I mean, Destiny said in the beginning, like, oh, it's meaningless. Well, yes, that is meaningless, right? It's meaningless in the sense that even he said, oh, I'm going to do a third term. Well, that's not going to happen. It's meaningless even if he picks his successor because he has no control over it, right? Trump has literally no control over, if he can have a third term or who his successor will definitely be. Okay? He has no control over it. He has control over who he supports. He has control over, the stupid shit he says, but it doesn't mean that, oh, if Trump says I'm going to run a third term. I'm going to run a third term. No, that doesn't happen like that because he can't. Trump picks, I don't know, J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio. Doesn't mean that they get 100% chance they will be the next president. Doesn't work like that. So I believe he trolls more than he's actually saying reality, right? But when you troll, it's not necessarily you're saying good things.
The system of checks and balances working as intended. He is doing things. Some of them are illegal. The legal system pushes back against that. The Supreme Court, in which 3 of his own appointees sit on, and 3 of the other 6 are Republican-appointed judges, regularly and repeatedly deny him the opportunity to do things that he wants to do. That, I think, is how the system is supposed to work, isn't it?
So no, but I would also say that for the first part, I don't know where 99.999% of Trump's statements are trolling. I don't know where that comes from. I feel like
that specific statement about third term, I suspect, is 99.9% trolling. That's
but you
what
said earlier if he was young enough, he would run for a third term.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, I thought you said you feel like he would.
No, I didn't say that.
Do you think that if he was 20 years younger, do you think he would try to
what
run
I
for
was
a third
saying was,
term?
I agree that him talking about a third term is a worrying thing that he should stop doing. That's
Sure.
what I agree with.
Okay, that might be that on that issue, but then there are a load of other issues where it seems like he feels like he alone is entitled to make these decisions that nobody else ought to have any oversight over. So, for instance, this idea that the president has usurped from the Congress the ability to do terror.
I'll say better than the other DA. We will let her be Germany 1945. That's if the other candidate came to power. Remember, she was, I believe, $3 billion negative after the election. What? Oh, yeah. Shoot. She had a lot of donor money. I mean, like, people were spending on her, and she still failed.
And worldwide economic policy that's a pretty uniquely Trump thing, that you can levy tariffs across every other country in the world. The Supreme Court has finally checked him a bit on that power. Now he says he's going to go elsewhere and try to do the exact same thing. So it seems like we're just going to have a back and forth on this, maybe until he's out of office.
But sorry to interrupt, but just I think this is worth double clicking on. That's why I said that is the system working as intended. So American democracy is robust and strong because when the president tries to do things he's not allowed to do by law, the legal system prevents him from doing that. Right?
No. So I think that the American system is strongest when everybody is trying to act in good faith within the bounds of the system. I don't think continuously.
When was the last time that happened?
Joe Biden. I mean, if you want, we can run a whole host of issues. So I would look at like the weaponization of the Department of Justice by Donald Trump. I think is a historically crazy thing by a U.S. president. If you want to give me any examples that you feel would stack up to that between Biden, Obama, and the Clintons over the past 30, 40 years.
I didn't say that Donald Trump is not doing things that shouldn't be challenged legally. What I said is I think it's the part of the American system that all these different branches compete for power in the way that has been prescribed in your founding documents. And that is an ongoing process that has been going on for 250 years. There's definitely criticisms that you can make about Trump. I think there's plenty of criticisms that people could make about previous presidents of both Democratic and Republican. What I'm saying is, whatever you may think about Donald Trump, I don't think American democracy is a threat because the system is working as intended. And if he was truly dictatorial, the signal for me of a president being dictatorial is when they override the checks and balances that exist and begin to effectively break the system. I don't think that's happening.
But he's been doing that, right?
On the contrary, what's happening is every time he goes too far, the system that is in place holds him accountable and prevents him from doing what he would otherwise like to do.
Well, so prevents is the wrong word to use because oftentimes they have to check after the fact. So he's already done
that's how the system works, right?
Not ideally. You don't have a guy who's trying to break the rules over and over and over again and then getting checked and coming back.
But the system works in that way with every president that you've ever had,
but
right?
When they
do something, then they get sued, then they have to change the policy that they've adopted.
Generally you consult with the people within your executive branch to see if you feel like you have the legal authority to do said thing. If they feel like you have the legal authority to do said thing, then you try to do said thing. If the courts check you, you accept the court's answer, you move on. But Donald Trump, more than any president in my lifetime, tries to circumvent the other branches, not utilize even his Republican majority Congress, chastise and attack his Supreme Court when they don't give him the specific rulings that he wants, and then when he's ruled.
It's not, but that doesn't mean that he's not allowed to it, right? You said, he should talk to, well, so what? If he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to, right? I'm sorry. It's like, this is a thing where our government for the last, I don't know, couple decades, maybe even longer, hasn't been great. I've been very critical of our government. I think it's been shitty, right? They get nothing done. They get nothing done. So to be honest, do I cry that Trump just goes for it? No, because we need a president that just do it. Just do shit, right? Just do shit. Because I believe a lot of times checks and balances are great, but I believe checks and balances sometimes just makes it, you can't get nothing done. You can't get nothing done. And we see that a lot with Congress, right? When like one group says, okay, let's pass this. The other group says no. Then you got like, what is it? A government shutdown, right? So you get these government shutdowns, these nothing passes, no laws or legislations or whatever nothing passes because one side says yes, one side says no, and you get this constantly. Shit like that, nothing gets done, right? Nothing gets done. So whether it's not like I agree with Trump on everything, but you know what? If he could do it, he just does it instead of like, oh, let me ask permission, which a lot of times they will say no anyway. So really, okay, let me just try to get it done. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, okay, whatever. I don't necessarily mind that. To a degree, yes. There's a point where he could overstep his bounds, and I believe if he oversteps his bound, that's probably when Congress or whatever other branches will definitely step up and stop him, and they have.
Against, he constantly openly as unconstitutional. But the problem is the
ultimately
damage is already
he follows what the Supreme Court says, right?
I don't think it works that way. It would be like saying, like if somebody doesn't want you to beat you up and they stop beating you up 10 minutes into you asking, I'm saying, well, they eventually listened, right? Well, I mean, the damage is already done.
Well, the damage is not already done in that they can't pursue the policy that they were pursuing prior to that
Well, the damage
point,
is already done though, right? So for instance, for tariffs, he's collected some $200+ million of tariffs. He's irreparably harmed our trade relationship with basically every other country, including the United Kingdom on the planet. We've got people, DACA kids, we just recently found out, I think yesterday, have been deported from the country who were never supposed to be. You've got 2 American citizens that were murdered.
So what? I'm sorry. Ruin our trade agreements with other countries? So fucking what? You just said that he collected like millions or whatever amount in tax in tariffs. Great. That benefits our country. I'm sorry. Our trade agreements with the UK? No. Has it benefit us? I mean, like, I'm sorry. Like the trade agreements with like certain nations, I to be honest, I don't know if it's benefit us all that well. Okay, I don't know if it benefit us all that well. So, like, let's say, for instance, from China, seriously, because of our trade agreements with China, we overconsume, right? We become a big consumer market, okay? And we lost a lot of jobs, we lost a lot of manufacturing, we lost a lot of things. Has it been a net positive for us? I don't necessarily think so. So, I mean, like, you can't say that, you know, like our relationships with the UK and all this stuff is bad because honestly, it's like, I don't give a shit, right? I don't care. To be honest, I don't care if we had a friendly relationship with any of these nations, right? At the end of the day, as long as it benefits America, that's what I care about. So if, let's say, I really don't know what the benefit was with, let's say, having certain trade relationships with certain countries. What was the benefit, right? Like, because there's certain restrictions that, let's say, certain our companies can't go to certain like other nations, while other nations, their companies can come to us. What kind of benefit is that?
By questionable, at best, deployments of ICE. You've got the president allowed to do that, and Donald Trump goes, okay, it was the guy who's supposed to enforce the laws. Him continually skirting or going over these guidelines over and over and over and over and over again in so many historically unique ways, and then saying, well, eventually the court said, hey, that thing that you did 2 years ago that you've already politically and financially benefited from, you weren't allowed to do that. I don't think that's a good system. I feel like it's a dictatorial guy.
Well, not for me to comment on whether the American system of division of power is good or bad. It is what it is. And what I'm saying is that system seems to me to be standing up pretty well on balance. Doesn't mean that there aren't individual things that you might not agree with. For example, if I don't want to speak about America because it's not my country and it's not from, I don't vote in America, I don't live there, I visit a lot and I like it, but it doesn't mean that I get to sort of say, but if Britain was deporting people to a third country without due process, I would be against that, right? So you can deduce from that how I feel about the United States doing that. I would be totally against that. However, there is a system of checks and balances in the US, which is when the president does something, which is, or anyone does something which is found to be illegal, you have to go through the courts. And the question for me is, has America become a dictatorship, which is what I think the important question is, right? Somebody can have all the tendencies they want. The question is America in a position where its leader is able to do whatever he wants and ignore the law? I don't believe that's happening. And is America in a position where its leader will not democratically allow the next freely elected person to take power? Is America in a position where that's not going to happen? I don't think that's the case either. I think power will be handed over peacefully and democratically. And I think the president of the United States is not unrestricted by the law in terms of what he's able to do. So to me, that's a reassuring thing.
Do you think a dictator thing is only bad at the very microsecond it becomes a dictator? Or do you think that all of the steps leading up to it are maybe cause for concern? Because when we say that there will be free and fair elections, I'm fairly certain that that's the case. But you have the president right now now weaponizing his Department of Justice to attack states to look for evidence of fraud in the 2020 election. A case that he's lost in front of courts and to the public and to his own prior administration over and over and over again. Or you've got the president of the United States who's already benefited financially, massively, that the tax department has from collecting revenue from tariffs, which was a thing he knew he never should have done, but he did it, and he's continuing to do it in other ways, and the court will probably rule against him there. Insofar as being able to break the laws or whatever, you have a president who has now been granted immunity from committing all crimes as a result of a bizarro Supreme Court ruling. So in a way, that's a uniquely new thing that Donald Trump has been granted, the ability that once he commits a crime, it can never be questioned or talked about because he's the president of the United States. So, I mean, in some ways, he literally is committing crimes or he can commit crimes that he can't be ever held accountable for because of new precedents that have been created to protect him as the president of the United States.
Sorry, what were your questions? You made, I think, 3 questions.
So basically, I think that the idea that he's not a dictator yet, because we might have the next free and fair election, when it seems like every part of his administration is through multiple vectors trying to attack free and fair elections, to say, well, as long as the courts, eventually course correct, that it's not a dictatorial thing. I just think it's a very naive reading of how democracies can fail.
Well, I don't. Sorry. In terms of just say that last bit again.
I think that a guy who is in bad faith attacking all of your democratic norms as the executive is a uniquely scary thing. In the U.S., we call it a constitutional crisis. That's a uniquely scary thing, and Donald Trump has shown a penchant for a willingness to do this over and over and over again. And just because he's not at the point where
But this is the problem I have, right? It's all the things Donald Trump is doing, it's within his power. If it wasn't within his power, guess what? He wouldn't be able to do it, right? This is the problem where he is able to, if he's able to get his department checking up on if whatever the past election was free and fair, that's within his power. That's within his power. Okay, whether that's a good use of whatever, so what, right? This is a thing where we have people checking up on Epstein, all the Epstein file. I mean, like, seriously, we have government officials using resources to that shit. So really, it's like, okay, so what, right? It's within it's within his power to do, right? So how it's not a dictator when it is within his power that he can do it. Okay. Sending ICE agents to certain states within his power, right? I don't know if the Supreme Court says, I've never heard of that, but it says that, okay, this president Trump doesn't if he commits a crime, he won't be prosecuted. Okay, well, did it say just Trump or presidents? Right? And let's be honest, we've had plenty of cases, right, where presidents aren't necessarily hold to a high moral standards or whatever, okay? I mean,
a dictator, angling himself and doing everything he can to get to that point. I think that interim period is worth criticizing.
I'm not against criticizing any president or prime minister or leader of any country. I think, it was somewhat humorous to some people, but I genuinely believe that there are good and bad sides to every person and every decision and so on. So there's plenty to criticize every leader of every country for. President Trump is no exception to that. There's lots of things I don't agree with him on. There's lots of things I agree with him on, as with every other person. But to me, words are important because they have certain definitions. You don't say that someone is pregnant until they've actually become pregnant. In the same way, I wouldn't call someone a dictator until they are a dictator. That does not mean that you can't say, well, deporting people to a prison in a country to which they've never been is not something I want the leader of my country to do. That is not something I want the leader of my country to do. And that is something that I would want the judicial system of my country to challenge the leader on doing and prevent them from doing in the future. That's my view on it.
Do you think that Donald Trump is uniquely dictatorial in his search for power in the United States? And then if your answer to that is no, in what ways are Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, in what ways did they test the power of the executive in the ways that Donald Trump has? Maybe using the example of the weaponization of the Department of Justice.
Truthfully, I just don't know enough about all the history of the American presidents to be able to make a...
I mean, like every single of them started wars, right? I believe every one of them started wars without necessarily Congress approval. I don't know Bill Clinton. I don't know. I think he had Congress support. I believe, right? I believe they fired missiles well before Congress's support. So, again, it's like nothing. again, I'm not saying I'm more intelligent than anyone, so I don't have these information off the top of my head, right? I'm just glancery saying shit. I could be proven wrong, so I'm always leaving out to that. But I believe Biden has done it and Obama has done it, where they striked other nations, right, without direct Congress approval at that moment, right? So that's what I believe. I could be wrong.
Good comparison between all of them. So I just can't say.
So are you neutral on that, or do you think
It's not that I'm neutral. I'm uninformed about it.
Okay.
I try not
If I were to tell you that Donald Trump has told his Department of Justice to go after individuals using a prosecutor that he said that he truthed out, that this is a thing that no U.S. president in my lifetime has ever done, would you agree that that's like a uniquely bad way for him to weaponize his Department of Justice?
If that is all true, I just don't have enough detail to be able to comment on it properly. I mean, I think if you had a Republican here, they'd probably start talking about the fact that the Democrats tried to put Trump in prison, and their view of that would be that that is equivalent, right?
Sure.
I don't
There's a
know
fact of the matter, though,
I
but-
don't know enough about it to say which one of those cases is true. I try not to comment on things I don't know enough about.
Okay.
It's not my,
Actions have been in the
you're totally
United
right. It's my impression, which is why I said it's my impression. It's not my hard-held opinion based on the facts.
What would be a line in the sand for you, or a thing that if you saw Donald Trump do it, you'd be like, ooh, that's a pretty scary...
If he used force to prevent the legal system of the United States from enacting its will, or if he prevented a free and fair election from taking place, or the freely and fairly elected candidate of the whoever's next from taking power.
So when Donald Trump, I think he wrote an executive order, when he's talking about utilizing ICE to help the states manage their polling stations, would that be an example of that? Because these are things he's already said he wants to do. In the United States, our individual states all run their own elections. It's a very big deal for all of them. The federal government doesn't intervene in that traditionally.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump has been on record now saying multiple times that he would like to have more control over elections in the states.
Well, it depends what those ICE people do. If they're stuffing ballots into voting booths, then yeah, that'd be a problem. If they're preventing people who are not citizens of the country from voting, I think that would actually help election integrity. So it depends what they're actually doing.
So I mean, it's not like Donald Trump is going to say we're going here to prevent people from voting, right?
I'm not saying it's about what he'd say. I think it's about what he'd do. So if the ICE agents are there to prevent non-citizens from voting, I think that helps election integrity.
They don't even have a mechanism by which
If the ICE agents are there to prevent people from voting who should be voting, or if they're stuffing ballots into voting booths, then that's a different conversation.
If a state explicitly says we don't want ICE here, we don't want the federal government intervening in our state elections, and Donald Trump says I'm going to do it anyway for election security, would you agree that that would be highly problematic and somewhat dictatorial?
Well, it depends on what the reason is for the state to do that. If the state is doing that to ensure that non-citizens vote, then no. If the state says that for other reasons, then yes.
Well, they're never going to, even if they were doing it to ensure non-citizens vote, they're never going to say that, right?
Right.
And then if Donald Trump's doing it for election security, he's never going to say...
But if that was the rationale for them doing it, then I think you'd want somebody to prevent non-citizens from voting, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but it would be up to the state to enforce that, number one.
What
and
if
number
the state refuses to enforce that because it's in their electoral interest to do that?
I mean, it would be up to the people of that state to vote, to have their state do something different in terms of the accountability. That's just how our system works.
Okay.
You can't be saying like it would be up to that state. Well, then you can't. What? It would be up to that state to handle it. Are you kidding me? Because here's the thing where sometimes you don't know what's going on, right? You won't even know that. Oh, maybe illegals are voting. You won't really know. Okay, so that's the thing where it's up to the no.
But I mean, like, given that I know that Donald Trump has tried to interfere with elections in the past, why would I even trust his administration to do anything related to election integrity utilizing federal officers, even if he said that that was his intention? I feel like just seeing him send those agents to any state just in and of itself would be enough to say this is a dictatorial action.
Well, no, your suspicion does not make it dictatorial. But yes, I agree with you. January the 6th was not a good look, and it created a lot of doubts in a lot of people's minds about his intentions when it comes to accepting the results of elections. Democracy depends on losers' consent, and when people lose, they should accept it. But you can also see it from the perspective of someone who might say, well, if you've got a situation where there seems to be, you tell me if this is wrong, but there seems to be some kind of, inexplicable desire to have people vote without ID or to have people vote who may or may not be citizens, that would also make you question election integrity. And I think people are totally entitled to question it and then act accordingly. So
they are, but the process is to vote on your state. Then if you want to have a different requirement for identification at the time you go to vote, you need ID to vote in the United States, just not when you go to the ballot to vote, but to register to vote with your own ID, which I think it was like that even in the UK up until I think a few years ago. I think you didn't have to show a voter ID.
You still don't.
Oh, you still
So
don't,
it's a
then-
problem, and
oh,
that's
that
something we
changed
need to
recently.
fix as well.
Yeah, so I'm saying that like but in the United States, it would be up to an individual state to fix what they want. The president coming in and deciding that he wants it to change, and then given his whole history with election conduct, it doesn't seem like it's coming from a place of good faith. That would be a thing it does right now worry me as a U.S. citizen. You've seen him invade Georgia right now with his FBI to seize voter information from 2020, and you've seen he's got an entire cabinet. His whole cabinet has refused to even concede that he lost the 2020 election, which is kind of insane given that we were supposed to be a bastion of democracy and everything, the leader of the free world in terms of liberalism and democracy. So yeah, I don't know why I would ever be okay with the president overstepping his boundary with federal officers to go into states and enforce stuff and not see that as anything but dictatorial.
What differs it from?
I think it's a little bit hard you debating U.S. Politics with someone who's not a U.S. citizen, right? Particularly who's not a U.S. pundit, right? Who's not a a political debater, a U.S. political debater. So I think that's honestly that's pretty much a stupid conversation to have. I think that's it, guys. I think that's about it for tonight. Laughing Man, first one here, last one here. I love you, my brother. All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the love. All right. Thank you for being here. I love you, man. Who else, right? Jeremiah, thank you for just stopping by. I love you. Whiskey, congratulations on being 8 days sober. Hopefully it'll be a month and then continuous, right? Continue staying sober, my brother, right? Your health. I want you to live for a long time, right? Red Door, my sister, thank you for being here. I love you. I love your big bars. I love you, my brother. Thank you for being here. TBD, thank you for just stopping by. I love you, my brother. Justin was here from my other channel. I love you, my brother. Thank you. Guys, you guys are amazing. Thank you for the love. Thank you for just stopping by, okay? Mad support for just even, just stopping by and saying hi. You guys are amazing. Please check out my other videos. Please like. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. But yeah, you guys are amazing. I love you guys. But yeah, that's it for tonight. All right. Hope you guys will have a good rest of your day. Yeah, see you guys on the next live. Later, guys. Later.